And the stand-ins are out as well. Did you see? Have you got the links from the chat for the stand-ins?
Yes,
that's good.
So what am I running through again? It'll be
Pro.
I'm guessing just
just pro. Actually, yeah, just pro.
Cool. Nice. 2 weeks feels much longer than it actually is.
Yeah.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series in officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
For the upcoming right-hander, brake 30 meters later and ease off the pressure.
Are you spending a lot of time looking for setups and struggling for faster lap times? Are you tired of searching online for answers? Would you like to get setups, analysis and tutorials from some of the best sim racers in the world like Ralph Alla, Mitchell de Jong, Martin Krunker, Josh Rogers and many more? If so, virtualracingschool.com is the answer you've been looking for. VRS data packs provide hot laps from our professional coaches for you to analyse and replicate. They provide tutorials that walk you through the fastest laps and what the pros did to achieve the best times. And they provide the setups you need to ensure your car is competitive in both oval and road racing. If you're ready to get faster and reach more podiums sooner than later, just go to virtualracingschool.com and sign up for a free account today.
Well, good evening everyone, and welcome back once again to another race evening here at Evolution Sim Racing tonight, ahead of the third round of our 10-week season here in A-Split of the GT3 Season 8 Championship. So all 5 of the championships already starting to take shape, but there's still lots of opportunity for some of our drivers to make those intentions known, and they're going to have to set their marks down on their respective championships, because we're starting to get into it now, aren't we? So as always, you join myself, Joseph Glass, inside the commentary box tonight, once again alongside the returning Mr. Dara Thacker, as we look ahead to the next 2 30-minute sprint races here at the Circuit de Mugello in northern central Italy, just north of the city of Florence. And Dara, after quite an eventful 1-hour session around that slowly drying Portimao last week, I'm sure the drivers are looking forward to sort of getting back to a little bit of normality, back on a dry track, back in that normal format, of course, and a little bit more scope for some different drivers to try and get themselves back onto the podium and score big points for themselves and the teams, of course.
Yeah, and coming back to 2 30-minute races means that there is a little bit more opportunity for the drivers. If they have a difficult start to the evening, maybe a poor qualifying session, maybe a poor race one, there is still a chance to pick up points towards the end of the session. Last week there were those drivers that started off slowly and weren't able to recover really, and so lost out a lot of points accordingly, but there's still a lot of time and chance tonight for drivers to get back in towards some kind of early championship contention, because we are still pretty early in the season.
We are, but as we found out last season, Dara, it absolutely flies by. Probably more so than us than the drivers, do you think? Or maybe with all that extra preparation that they do, it feels like those 10 weeks last a little bit longer. But for us in the commentary box last season, it seemed like it was finished before it even started.
Yeah, and I think with Sunday nights coming into fruition as well, with that being every couple of weeks, it'll feel like this season going even quicker because, you know, we started after the opening round on a Sunday night. We'll finish long before the end of the season. So it is going to be fast and furious. And I think if drivers struggle in the next couple of weeks before they know it's the start of May and they're not really where they want to be in the championship and not with a lot of time to try and gain themselves back to where they would like to be.
Yeah, of course, and not to forget that we have a couple, not too many, but we have a couple of drivers competing in all 3 championships, of course. So there'll have to be a decision made on 1 or 2 Sundays as to whether they go down the European GT Championship route or the Daniel E. Porsche Cup Championship. But we saw the first round of that competition getting underway the last Sunday. So yeah, you're totally right. But tonight, the focus is on the 3rd round of this GT3 Split A Championship. Of course, Split B, as always, live as we speak on the Evolution Sim Racing YouTube channel, coverage by Mr. Paul Walsh. So then, before we get underway with qualifying, as always, let's take a look at the series sponsors and how the rest of the season is likely to stack up. So as always, a big thank you to Kame for providing all of our driver trophies as always, and the GP2 group for their continued support. And of course, the 2 main title sponsors that we have this season, VRS and Trophy AI, offering some different but unique ways to improve your racing through artificial intelligence. And then of course the classic setup shops and hot lap guides and whatnot. So be sure to check out both of those guys, or all 4 of them really, but particularly VRS and Trophy AI with their online solutions. So the calendar then, Dara, is slowly coming into play. Of course, we've had that pre-season round around the Red Bull Ring, Watkins Glen to open the season. Obviously, you weren't with us here last week. I don't know if you had a chance to catch up at all, but it was a pretty eventful session in that hour-long drying race around Portimao. A few incidents, massive one at the start, but nothing too dissimilar from what we were used to seeing, of course. The likes of Lucchese and Humphrey right up there toward the sharp end of the stick. Humphrey did actually make a mistake right toward the end of the session, similar to Lucchese at the end of Watkins Glen. So let's see how those guys get on. And as we cover the championship standings in just a little while, we'll see how competitive it's getting right toward the front of both of our championships. So Road America and COTA, followed by Road Atlanta. So a triple header in the States before we return. In fact, more. We've got another one in Sebring coming up as well. So COTA will take us halfway through, a fortnight away from now, but for the time being, we've got those 2 30-minute races around Mugello to contend with. So for the first time this season then, let's take a look at how the standings shape up after the opening 2 rounds, starting first with the Elite Division, of course. So Mr. Luke Lucchese, as you might expect, leads the way at the front of the standings. 2 podiums for him, and that slightly disappointing second round around Watkins Glen, where he couldn't quite work his way through the field, having started down in P14 after that reverse grid took effect. He's just ahead of his teammate Tristan D'Obliga in the McLaren, it says now, so potentially a change of machinery from the Acura over to the McLaren for Tristan, although that might just be a clerical error, because I think I've seen Tristan in the Acura already here tonight, so we'll assume that he's still in that machine. RDSA 1-2 as it stands then. Sadly for them though, it's not the same on the track at the moment. William Humphrey, he's come out of nowhere really. We knew that it'd be quick, but I'm not sure that he would have expected to start the season so strong. 114 points for the Vulcan Fasteners driver, and he is just ahead of Tjek Plug, the Vulcan Motorsports Gold driver, the leading Vulcan Motorsports driver. He had 2 podiums to start off his season, but not the best turn of events this time last week. He'll be looking to stay in touching distance with Humphrey and try and get ahead of him this time out. Just a little off, the third of our 3 RDSA esports drivers rounds out the top 5, and it's Jimmy Vyman on 99 points. He'll be looking to crest 100 tonight, I'm sure. Raz Harper, DDK, those are also the guys who we see all over the grid. DDK and RDSA and Vulcan are going to be a great set of competitors this season. I have no doubt about that. Sam Derbyshire in P8, even with that DNF, the consistent results in round 1 and round 3 have done him enough to see him inside the top 8. The final RDSA driver, Luke King, there or thereabouts as well, still well within touching distance of the top 5, of course. Lots still to play for. Kevin Daniels rounding out the top 10. It's Hayden Miller in P11 and Thomas Pugh in the Mustang doing his job and getting himself into the top 12 in the Elite Division.
And then, as we take a quick look over to the pro standings, it shows that we've got a bit of a leader at the moment in the form of Kalle Leskinen, 45 points over Joshua Cohen. It's a decent margin to have at this stage of the season, especially considering the tightness that we see from P2 down. David Daniels currently occupies one of those top 3 spots and is only a couple of points off of Cohen, so it'll be interesting to watch that battle tonight as we get into both the races here at Mugello. Chris Jennings is having a good start to the season as well. He's crossed over that 100 points threshold, as has Alex Fretwell, who is in P5. He's got a little bit of a margin back to Lorenzo Gorgetto, who I'm sure will be looking to use his Ferrari tonight to his advantage. Adam Atherton and Stephen Hobbs are the rest of that kind of echelon of drivers looking to fight towards the front of the championship and maybe put themselves into one of those top 3 trophy winning positions. Then we look at the likes of Lawrence De Dapper down in P9, just ahead of Evan Main, who's just inside the top 10, with Alexander Feuchter and Stephen Codman, who are inside the top 10, but there's inside the top 12, I should say, but more than a fair few drivers trying to find him behind him as well.
Yeah, so gaps just starting to come up, but still early days, as we say, Dara. So it's lots and lots of opportunity left for these guys to change up on the positions then. And so we have a pretty full teams championship. So again, we'll bring you that standings for the first time this season. Leading the way, showing that advantage of having 4 drivers, of course, is the RDSA team of Tristan Drobriger, Luke King, Luke Lucchese, and Justin Eloff, of course. All of them, however, in the elite class. So that does, in a way, impact your championship, of course. Theoretically, the best approach will be to have 1 driver from the elite into the pro, into the premier, and in the evo. And again, theoretically, you could all win the race and score maximum points. So the RDSA team will be taking points away from each other as the season goes on. That much is inevitable, but so far, so good for those guys after a couple of twitchy results as well. So it's going well at the start of the championship. However, a team that is split between not only 2 classes, but also the 2 splits of the RLH team of Alex Fretwell, James Pallow, and Wesley Van Ren. Only 4 points in it between those drivers and the RDSA team at the top. Next up, it's the 2 Axis Sim Sports teams. I'm not sure if that's the Y or the X or the Z team, but it's led the way by Matthew Croft, Mark Parkhurst, and Andre Muntian. Again, split B drivers, I believe, there. Most of them, I believe, split B. So those guys a little bit off the back, just slightly 66 points, I believe that is, away from the top 2. So the battle for P3 definitely on. It'll be a tense time potentially in the Axis Sim Sports team radio tonight, potentially, as they look to exchange positions inside the top 3. Next, it's the next 4-man army of the Kame GP2 Porsche team. Scott Kostrick, John Ludbrook, James Bostock, and Gareth Newton, all home to split B, of course. So once again, those guys taking their points off each other, good enough to be in the top 5. Some competition at the top of the elite standings for the DDK guys. That's Sam Derbyshire, Kevin Daniels, and Raz Harper. All of these guys very, very close together. You can see from P3 down to P7, it could all change. Nifors by Glass Tech Racing next up in P7. Sad news for us today, actually. Klaus Velen unable to race for at least a few weeks, so that drops down to Jan Osberg and Jan Narg to take the baton for the Nifors team down there in B-Split as well. So fingers crossed they can stay within touching distance of the top 5, if not the top 3, for the next few weeks to come. Adam Baker will lead his team, the LS Racing drivers of Pete Paeva Edward Andino and Mark Wesley, as they look to, well, they are dropping off a little bit. They need to get a few more points under their belts tonight if they're going to stay within touching distance of the top 7. And then the Vulcan Motorsports Gold team, who I think might be slightly disappointed with that one, actually, because the likes of Vinchezevskis and Plurg have done very well at the front of the elite standings, but clearly haven't quite turned those strong qualifying performances, those strong early race starts into race results, and the team find themselves down in P9. Then is that the first two-man team? I think it is, yes. So the lead two-man team, the Phoenix Racing team of Hayden Phoenix Miller and Grant Miller, brothers it seems, just in behind, just inside the top 10 by only 2 points ahead of the Moonshiners, rounding out P11. The rest from 11th down to 20th, we've got VRT, Dexterous, the second DDK team, the third Axis team, the second Vulcan Motorsport Silver team, Verano Academy, Suma GP2 Porsche team, and Fusion Racing. We do, however, have 33 teams in the championship, but sadly, Dara, we can't fit them all on the screen, so we're going to have to just end it there, cut back to trackside, just in time for the qualifying session as the drivers make their way out onto the circuit.
It's great to see so many teams, though, isn't it? The fact that we can't fit them all on the screen is always a good thing. It means that there are drivers and teams that are turning up and really wanting to compete in this event, which is always what we want to be seeing. But now, as we get in towards qualifying, drivers have, they've had their near hour, I think 45 minutes worth of practice time. Now they can try and dial into their qualifying pace, because this is a great chance for them to put it near the front of the field. If they've not had that good start to the season, if they're kind of on the fringes of that, top 5 in the championship, top 3 where the trophies are won, this is a good chance and a good track as well to really show what you can do. Definitely a qualifying track. It's so much fun to drive here at Mugello, and these GT3 cars make it all the better, don't they?
It really does. Here's the first man out then. He's heading his way around. Paul Cowlishaw. Haven't seen too much of him so far this season. He's been a long-standing member of this championship, actually, so very good to see him back out on track in that orange and grey Suma. I was going to say Camo there. I'm so used to their colours. The Suma GP2 team. We'll ride on board with Paul for a short while. We'll see how things stack up, of course, and the drivers have sort of exchanged one undulating circuit around Portimao for another one here at Mugello. No break, 2 very complex circuits 1 week after the next Dara, but the last time we arrived here it was pretty tricky in those wet conditions, so I'm sure these guys will be grateful for some dry running for the next couple of hours.
Yeah, I think it'll be something that the drivers enjoy, but it's not going to last too long because, of course, weather will become a bit of a factor as we get a little bit further into the season. So it's far away, and you've got to enjoy these little dry patches while they last. But it's really interesting, I think, to see how drivers can try and approach tonight's race. It's definitely one where qualifying can be important. We do see moves made here at Mugello, but they can be difficult to come by. Turn 1 is a big chance to, find your way past, but at the same time, it can be very tricky with the camber going from the inside to the outside, so it's increasingly more difficult to run it all the way around that outside line. But I think another track where drivers want to get that time in early as well. So if we see some drivers maybe struggle in the early stages and put the pressure on themselves towards the end of the session, they might not get the lap time that they want in, and particularly for the for the elite drivers, I should say, they could be behind quite a few pro drivers.
Absolutely right then. So let's ride on board with Paul and see how he gets on. He's already making his way through the exit of turn 3, heading now down toward the second of the 2 left-right chicanes through 4 and 5. Then it becomes one of the trickiest sections of the circuit, the downhill right-left section through Casanova and Savelli, through 6 and 7, of course. So tempting to try and carry as much speed as he can. You can run quite far wide on the right-hand side of that exit curb, and then just a slight lift. Some drivers might be able to take that flat out depending on how they've set up their machine, but a slight lift by Paul as he heads back uphill through Arabiata 1 and 2, now down into turn 10. Another sequence of fast chicanes. He's got a couple more braking zones to go, using the track limits there on the right hand side, still within the limit, of course. A tricky braking zone to get right. The car will lift as you get on the brakes, but you don't want too much because you can carry quite a lot of speed there. Bang it over both of these curves. You can really slam it over them and take liberties out of both the entry and the exit curve there. Open up the steering here for the final corner, light on the brakes, trying to get the rear to step round on you before you get nice and early back on the power, drive the car down toward the line, And Dara, what do you reckon? We're not seeing any times. Here they come. Ignas Vinciszewski's a 47.7, beaten by the pro driver of David Hutchison right at the front there. Cowlishaw, is he going to set a lap time? I'm sure he will. Is it going to be good enough to get on the front row? Yes, it is. It's good enough for provisional pole position. Quickly beaten by Luke Van Gotel as the times begin to flood in.
Yeah, good lap time there from Paul Cowlishaw there. There are some gaps forming in the mid-pack at this stage. Humphrey, though, going fast. It's Jimmy Vyman then replacing him at the top of the tree. Also interesting to see that Catrale is leading the way in his Ferrari. No, he's not. Davy Daniels leading the way in the Pro class as they continue to improve as well. Good lap time, actually, from Davy Daniels to only be about half a second off of what Jimmy Vyman has done. So really interesting to see how that split is going to work out. Plug is gone up into the top 6 as well in these early stages. And we are really just getting a feel, aren't we, for where these drivers could place themselves. There's so many more times to come, and clearly, with only 12 elite drivers having set a lap time, there's a few more who are looking to improve. Tristan Denobrica, one of them, going fastest already, but it's clear to see that there's a lot of contenders here, and we could see that order change around quite a fair bit over the next 10 minutes.
Yeah, we could. Let's flash up the gaps then, see how it stacks up. 2 seconds at the moment, separating the 13 drivers who set qualifying lap times, and Obliga leading the way. Then it's 5 Porsches. We haven't seen that all season. Myself and Chaz were talking last week about how it's nice to see less Porsche dominance at the moment, but wow, did not expect to see those guys so close together. Potentially a Porsche dominated circuit at the moment, though. We've got the one of a handful of Ferraris, potentially one of 2 Ferraris. Lorenzo Gogetto, the driver at the moment, making his way around the circuit, and as you rightly said, Dara, 3 more laps for most of these drivers left to set. 9.5 minutes to do it, and as the cars and the tracks comes up to temperature, these times are going to begin to plummet. Ignas there, Vinciszewski's crosses the line, sets a 46.1, just under half a tenth better ahead of Justin Eloff. Denobriga demoted to the second row of the grid. I'm sure, though, all of these times will begin to improve quite dramatically.
Yeah, I think just getting your iron in the opening lap, getting that banker lap time in is what a lot of them were looking to do, but Vinciszewski's putting in a good lap time at the top of that elite standings. Very interesting to see if he can hold it there with so many drivers who were right at the front of the field. I mean, Humphrey was not the first driver to set a provisional pole lap time, and yet he's already down to the, I think, onto the 3rd row now. So incredible to see how he's been displaced near the top of the order, but so many more lap times left to come in. But I guess with the rule of there only being a certain amount of laps for the drivers, it really focuses the mind. They know exactly how much time and how many chances they have left to get these laps done. It means that they really do have to start to deliver towards the end of the session. Otherwise, they're going to find themselves in a world of trouble. Yeah,
I'm sure they will. Let's ride on board for the rest of the lap. Who's about to cross over the line? Let's look. Luke Van Gotel, here he comes. Another Porsche. Potentially, we should watch on with someone else. We've already been around with Paul on his lap, but it'll have to do for now. Let's ride on board with Luke Van Gotel. We can see how he gets on. We missed Paul through the first sector, so we can see how Luke does on his, I think it's his 3rd, yeah, it's his 3rd flying lap now. This one and one more to go after this.
It'll be a good chance for him to put his way up the timing tower if he's able to. It's difficult really in the opening sector to nail some of these corners, because with the chicanes it's all about making that minimum speed as high as he possibly can, because if you can run as much speed through the corners as is possible, it's going to give you that better exit there to run down towards the next corner. But it is very difficult to nail it here at Mugello with the gravel traps where they are, placed just on the exits of some of the corners. If you're just taking an extra couple of Ks, as we're seeing Van Gotel do here, you're going to find yourself going wide and off the track, and that's going to ruin your momentum at parts of the circuit where momentum is going to be critical. This really is a circuit dominated by the ability of keeping the car flowing through these corners. If you make the circuit feel a little bit stagnated and fragmented as well, you're going to be losing out on the lap time. It's just keeping that flow, keeping that rhythm. That's what we're going to see in some of the good lap times in this session.
Yeah, really heating up toward the front of the elite class as well. 5 1,000ths of a second separating the 2 RDSA drivers. Sadly, the same can't be said in the Pro Division. Davy Daniels leading Robin Noel Brown, but it's a 7/10 margin for Robin to overcome if he's to get himself on the front row in class. William Humphrey riding on board with him now through 6 and 7. Again, 4 tenths for William, which is not what we saw this time last week. He was a master, to be honest, in that car, and that is not a master entry for the 198. That'll be his 3rd run, I believe, done. In fact, it might have even been his final run there, Dara, so Will might not be able to improve on that. He'll be hoping that the likes of Sam Derbyshire in behind here in the Corvette don't improve. At the moment, though, William inside the top 6 with Davy Daniels, actually, in P5 overall, so you can you can stick a pro driver in between Lucchese and Jimmy Vyman in the elite class as it stands.
Yeah, I mean, this really is holding up, isn't it? I mean, you can just see those gaps at the top of the timing tower. There's nothing to split them. I think a blink of an eye is about 7 or 8 hundredths of a second. So we've got about 4 drivers at the front of the elite class who are that close together. It just shows how tight it can be. The difference really is that Davy Daniels in that pro class set a lap time that would be good enough for P5 overall, and his next closest competitors a further half a second back. So really impressive to see the 26 going along nicely in this session. Chris Jennings has improved to the top 4. What about Sam Derbyshire? Goes to the top 6. Displaces William Humphrey, but Plurg goes up there to become the leading Corvette. Those two, though, running very close together. The lap time nearly matched in 6th and in 7th. A couple more drivers trying to improve, but it looks like some are struggling to find improvements in all sectors right now.
Yeah, completely right. We've got the likes of Gonzalez. He's about to cross the line. Keep an eye on him. P46 at the moment. Not even on the timing sheet. Is he about to appear inside the top 20 in class? Sadly for him, I'm not sure. He did improve only to P23 in class. Dominic Harvest-Sanity, he's inside the top 20 in the elite standings. David Hutchison inside the top 10. He started right at the front of the order, but as the lap times have improved, he hasn't quite followed through. Davy Daniels still leads the way. Half a second clear of the championship leader, Kalle Leskinen. Is David going to be able to improve as he crosses the line? 4.5 minutes to go. I think not. He will have one more stab at it. Here's an interesting one. Luke Lucchese inside the top 4 as it stands. And look at the gap there. 4 drivers inside it, 100th of a second. It's Elof, Denobriga, Vinciszewski and Lucchese. 3 of the RDSA drivers versus 1 of the Vulcan drivers. Can Lucchese make it a 1-2-3 as Denobriga leads the timing sheets provisionally at 46.007? No improvement for Lucchese. He'll have one more go at it, and wouldn't that be a result for them if they can start this race in 1, 2 and 3?
Yeah, they've been so impressive, haven't they, in their pace? Not necessarily getting the results. I'm thinking back to the race opener as well. Towards right at the end of the race, they were on for a fantastic finish. Wasn't quite to be for Luke, but they really have set the standard, haven't they, RDSA? So I think we're just seeing a continuation of that again here, and Lucchese wouldn't mind getting himself ahead of Vinciszewski's and towards his teammates, because if they can get towards the front, they can control the opening race at least. It'll be a little more difficult come race 2 when they have to make those overtakes through the field, but getting the points on the board early on is really what they're going to be targeting. And Luke needs to find just 0.02 of a second to put him there. And can he just eke that lap time out here?
Just a quick note from a technical side. I apologise for the small stutters that we're having here. I think it's too late to change it. We tried something new in the comms booth tonight to see if we can improve, but it doesn't look like it's having the effect. So you'll have to bear with us for this week. It's not too bad, but I am noticing now and again we're just dropping that smooth frames, let's say. So next week we'll go back to what we know, and it should be improved. But for now, we'll have to stick with what we've got. Here he comes then through 13, 14, Lucchese. Is he improving? It doesn't look like he's improving in either of the first or the second sectors, so much so that he's decided not to complete that lap. Only 2 more drivers on the circuit, 3 more drivers on the circuit. Paul Cowlishaw, Marcel Breitenbach. Marcel, out of sorts for him. The number 69 Porsche, currently P21 in the Pro class, which is P43 on the road. I think we're quite used to seeing Marcel slightly high up the order. Can Cowlishaw do anything? No, he can't. He comes into the pit lane. He will settle for 10th in class, half a second away from the pole man. William Humphrey dropped down 1 place as well. He'll start P9 in what is a Porsche-dominated P12 in the elite division. Lovely, lovely livery there, as we highlighted around Watkins Glen for the Barbecue Bread Racing team. Marcel not improving in the first and second sector. He is going to continue to the line. It could be an improved third sector. He needs 2.5 tenths, 3 tenths really, to make a big improvement. Hasn't done that, and I believe that will conclude our qualifying session with just over a minute and a half left to go.
Yeah, we shouldn't see too many more improvements, if any at all. So, really intriguing, I think, in terms of the qualifying session. Shame for Tristan and for anybody else, really, to not get that sub 1 minute 46, because they got so close, didn't they? But really interesting to see how this almost split is going to work out. Davy Daniels, top 5 overall from the pro class, with Kalle Leskinen setting a 46, nearly a 46.8, which would put him, well down the order, probably 15th.
15th.
In the starting. Yeah, incredible for Davy Daniels to have that kind of advantage. Whether it will hold up, we'll have to wait and see. But Kalle Leskinen, of course, has the points advantage to defend early on in this season. He's been the target man in the number 1 car. You'd be surprised, wouldn't you? But we'll have to see if that gap does close and whether Leskinen will be able to get through on Davy Daniels in this in this race, or whether come the reverse grid, he'll be able to be starting ahead and try and control it from there. But really intriguing to have this kind of grid to start off the race.
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, we've seen Mr. Leskinen doing very well throughout the start of this season. Didn't quite have the best time of it. I believe during qualifying, he was a little bit off the pace, made it back up into the top 4 by the time the checkered flag fell, which is good enough to see him lead the championship by 45 points, of course. But Joshua Cohen, of course, was the one who won the race last week. Looking for him down there, P15 in the pro division. So an absolute master race for him in the wet conditions. Sadly, though, when we've come back to a dry track, it seems like it's a normal service. 20th for him and 9th in the first 2 races. Let's keep our eyes on Josh, because he may have the pace over the consistency of a season, but in terms of mounting a title challenge, which at the moment he's in the best position to do, doesn't look like tonight is going to be his night, especially Davy Daniels, 2 points behind him, knocking on the door, and he's on pole.
Yeah, it really is intriguing. I think for all of these guys, before we get this race underway, I think the early laps are going to be telling, and how some drivers manage these starts is going to be interesting, because, last week, you couldn't really go for it off the start when you think of the fact that it was that 1 hour race. If they were put to the back of the order, they had to work their way back through organically, or that was realistically race over for them. Here, at least, they know that they will get a second bite of the cherry. They will get put towards the back of the field, but bunched up again, and they will have an opportunity. The question really will be, how much risk are drivers willing to take off of the start? I don't think there'll be too much risk. This is still race 1. Race 2 will probably see a lot more drivers pushing off the start and maybe trying to make a move or two where they otherwise wouldn't. But yeah, I think the psychology of this race could be really interesting. And early on in the season as well, drivers wanting to get those points on the board, not really wanting to give away too much. For the drivers that already have, they don't really want to be doing it again in only round 3 of the season.
So 6 drivers we wait for then, including the pole man, Tristan Denobliga. He will appear in just a moment. Then we'll get underway with our full formation lap ahead of the race start. Thank you to everyone who joins us in track, of course. Be sure to share the link around, get people involved, and let us know how you think the next hour of racing is likely to unfold. It'll be a tricky setting for the RDSA boys, of course. 3 of them inside the top 4. Nothing that they aren't familiar with, especially not here at Evolution Sim Racing then. So, as the drivers get underway, let's do a quick rundown of the team standings, of the grid ahead of round 3 here at Mugello. So the 170 South African of Tristan Denobliga leads the way for the RDSA team, and it's another RDSA front row lockout ahead of Justin Eloff, who starts just 81 thousandths behind his teammate. Ignas Vinciszewski's and Luke Lucchese will share the second row of the grid, and what will be another great battle between the 2 of them. Let's see if Ignas can sort of put off the RDSA drivers at the start, or if it's going to be a 1-2-3 in pretty quick time. Davy Daniels leads the way in the pro class. He is in P5, and he's got such a big gap, as we said earlier, Dara. 15th is his next class position, looking very, very favourable for the Belgian. Jimmy Vyman next, ahead of Quinten Verdonk and Tjek Plug. Inside the top 8, it'll be Sam Derbyshire and William Humphrey in the top 10. Paul Cowlishaw and Luke van Goortel will start on row 6, ahead of Luke King and Bjorn Claessens. Then we arrive at the next of our pro class drivers. Kalle Leskinen, the Finn, will start in P15, ahead of Jean Breitenbach in 16th. Bruno Silva and Chris Jennings will start ahead of Raz Harper and Robin Noah Brown on row 10, as we cycle through to see Biagio Coutrelet ahead of Kevin Daniels, P22. Matt Hoyland and Stephen Codman will start ahead of Marcel Henschel and David Hutchison, Victor Van Zijst, Lorenzo Gorgetto, Joshua Ness and Thomas Pugh on row 15. Alex Fretwell and Austin E. Priest will start ahead of Joshua Cohen and Danny Phillips. It'll be Gio Philippart and Joran Vandenberg ahead of Dominic Olvesanity and Jakob Krafek, Lawrence Dapper and Miles Owens inside the top 40. Jordan Ellis and Malcolm Coates will start us toward the back of the field. Marcel Breitenbach, Wayne Basson, Jun Gonzalez, Lawrence van der Water, Jeffrey Darman and Evan Main will be the last of our qualifiers. And starting down there in P49, Matt Simo, who sadly for him had to start at the back of the field. He served his qualifying ban after that accumulation of licence points from the opening round. That's him clean again, and he can start where he wants to this time next week. But P49 for the 58 machine, a lot of work for him to do as he tries to catch up with the rest of his pack.
Yeah, a lot of work for, I think, a few guys towards the rear of the field to do, but 30 minutes is quite a long time in racing, and at a track like Mugello, where we haven't got too many long straights, it means that I feel like the time's going to go a little bit slower than one of the tracks that we'll go to with some longer straights. So definitely chances for drivers across the field and up and down the order, but looking forward to seeing if I can get off the line in just a minute.
Well, there we go. I thought we were coming over the start finish straight there. I thought we'd lost a little bit of time. Yet another blimp. Apologies for that, but we head around turn 12, I believe it is at the moment, so we have a little bit of time left to go. And what an exciting start it will be. As we said, RDSA very familiar in this scenario. It looks a little bit like the pace car is also part of RDSA, so you could say we've got 4 of them at the front there, but you can see Ignis not going to give Denoblige any breathing space on the race start. The 109 will be all over him, and he might try and sneak up onto the grass on the right hand side of the circuit, try and take that favoured inside line. Of course, such a wide open entry, isn't it, Dara, to turn 1? It's a high risk of someone maybe getting a lock up, and it becomes, as we've said around a few of these circuits, a little bit of a bowling alley, the nature of the corner. Not quite, it's not a hairpin, it's not that slow speed, so guys can try and swing it around the outside as well if they so please. And Dara, I'll hand this one over to you as we get underway for the first of 2 races this evening.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing how Tristan can get off the line, whether Justin Olof can follow him or whether Vincenz Krevskis is going to be involved with this as well. Don't count out Davy Daniels either, because he is right up near the front of the overall order as Tristan will get us ready to race. Waiting for that green light to flash. No such problems with drivers thinking that the cars have gone, because the green light hasn't yet appeared yet, and the lights are on, and we are just about racing here at Mugello. Drivers jumping out of line immediately, though, with Tristan getting us away. Vincenz almost getting alongside Justin Eloff. In fact, I think he may have a go, ducking and diving their way towards turn number 1, with Luke Tracy looking behind, trying to find his way through the order. 3-4 wide in the background as well, as Tristan looks like he's been able to control it down in towards turn number 1, a really important place to keep the line to your advantage. Davy Daniels had a good start as well. He's been able to keep himself ahead of the chasing pack of pro drivers and the likes of Sam Derbyshire, who's fighting away towards the front end in the elite class. But really important start for those guys near the front of the field, and Tristan's absolutely nailed the launch.
He absolutely has. The mid-pack is doing okay as well. Only Alex Fretwell and Lorenzo Gorgetto have had an incident off the start on the gravel. A few of the drivers head there as we're now right in the middle of the field, P20 at the moment with Raz Harper. Let's take a look at how the standings line up then. Denoblige still leading Eloff, and who's that off? That's Robin Noel Brown, who's qualified quite well in his class. I'm trying to catch up with him. There he is, falling down the order. He sits in the gravel, and that will be Robin right down the back of the pack. William Humphrey up the inside of one of the Vulcan Motorsports Gold drivers as he hangs it around the outside, holds on to the advantage. Who's going to be first on the power? 2 Porsches powering the way down toward turn 12. Humphrey will have that inside line, the DDK of Quinton Verdonk. Sorry, that's not Quinton, that's Sam Derbyshire, who's looking to go up the inside. It's gone from bad to worse for Quinton now. He's dropped down behind the Corvette. Good news for Humphrey. He's got a little bit of a margin ahead of him to Tjek Plug. Bit of free air to try and work with in this opening stage of the race. All the cars filtering through now then. Everything stayed as it was inside the top 6, and there goes Bjorn Claessens in the Mustang, off and out into the gravel. He'll rejoin, it won't be the worst thing, but he's lost a lot of positions, especially as they come 2 by 2, getting in the way a little bit of the number 33 there. That's Austin Press, the American driver, who's just had to get himself around and by the Mustang. They'll have a good run as they cross over onto the second lap.
I think we just about called it, but Bjorn Claessen's, it looked like he went deep into the corner, made a bit of contact, and that sent him spinning out, so not really what he would want. Luke van Gortel, though, trying to fight his way through on Paul Colashaw as they work their way through 2 and 3. Outside line swinging nicely, all for the 1, 3, 4, but back up the inside comes Van Gortel, and then a little bit wide goes Paul, allows maybe Luke King to have a bit of a look as they run in towards the second chicane at 4 and 5. Nothing doing in the end. Luke van Gortel very astute there to find the right line and find his way through. Paul Colashaw just eating a lot of gravel at the moment as he runs down towards the Arriva Beatas, but really interested to see where these moves are being made. Turn 1's not necessarily where you'd make it stick, and we've seen that with Van Gortel, but he was able to set it up through the first couple of corners and get it on the exit of turn 3. We could see a few drivers try that now.
Absolutely, it's hitting up here at the front of the order. It has stayed as it was. Denobliga, Elof, Vinciszewski's and Lucchesi, the top 4, but nothing giving between these two at the moment. Davy Daniels, he's doing pretty well at the moment, staying in touching distance with these elite drives, of course. Nice and easy to follow the guys quicker than you. I doubt he'll want to put a move on any of these guys, and let's see how Jimmy Weimann, Czech Plug and William Humphrey do in their pursuit of these top 5 drivers. So far, so good. And Kalle Leskinen, he has also held position then. The biggest winners off the start. Kevin Daniels up 6 places. He's now up into P14 in the elite class. Other notable names: Daniel Phillips is up, Joran Vredenberg up 6 places, Dominic Oversanity up 6 as well, and sadly for Bjorn Claessens, Robin Noel Brown, Alex Fretwalk, Ghetto and Philip Hart, those guys have lost out right at the start of the session. William Humphrey, fastest lap time of the session, 46.8 for the Vulcan Fasteners driver. He means business as he looks to set off onto the back of Czech Plug. He's nearly there. Gravel on the circle on the outside. Drivers must avoid it. William, I think, will be hoping to mount a challenge on that Corvette at the moment. As we saw a little bit earlier, Dara, it might be the Porsche that has the dominance around a circuit like this.
It very well could be, and we are seeing quite a few of them, aren't we, towards the front in both categories, so we shouldn't be too surprised by that. Interesting that we've got the Denobliga and Vinciszewski's in those Acuras near the front as well, and we've got those couple of Corvettes, but the rest of the top 13 in the elite class, 9 of them are in Porsches, and then to see 3 of the top 4 in the pro class in the Porsches as well really does show that there is a little bit of dominant factor that car has here, and you probably put it down to some of the flowing nature of the circuit. The Porsche is known for being able to be pretty stuck through corners like this and quick as well, so no wonder that we are seeing those guys near the front of the field. Humphrey is, along with Justin Elof, one of the only 2 drivers kind of isolated in a Porsche right now, so we'll see if he can work his way ahead of the 177. The Derbyshire might have a go at him, but it's very, calm at the moment, isn't it? Particularly towards the front. They're all pretty close together, but no one close enough to really make any kind of send at the moment.
It is. Highlighting this, Marcel Henschel making good progress up inside the top 6. 3 places gained off the start. The 31 German machine. He's got a little bit of pressure in behind from Stephen Codman, of course. He's trying to get himself into the top 10 in that championship order, but it's a nice cluster here from Chris Jennings, who's lost out 1 position actually. Oh, and who's that going off and wide? That is Codman. That was a little bit of a commentator's curse from me. Do apologise for that one, but from Chris Jennings down to Joshua Ness, 3rd to 10th in the pro class. A nice little cluster here. Nothing getting interrupted by the elite class drivers, and then it's a little bit of an interchange actually from P27 all the way down to P34. It's pretty much an elite followed by a pro followed by an elite, so those guys are going to be a little bit tricky. I think it's sometimes difficult to know how the guys out of your class are going to behave. Sometimes some guys want to get on with it, and oftentimes some people in the elite class feel like they have rite of passage. Of course they don't. They're all racing each other here until it comes to blue flags, but when you've got a nice set of the pro drivers all battling for position, and rightly so, all the way up to the podium, it should make for some great racing. 23 minutes to go. We'll keep our eyes on how things are unfolding. It looks as though Jimmy Weimann is just about to get past Davy Daniels, of course, looking to go around the outside. It's the DDK driver versus the Sim Republic driver. Very, very similar liveries, different teams, however. And that's going to create a little bit of a bunch-up, I think, for the likes of Czech Plug, William Humphrey and Sam Derbyshire in behind. Just a quick word as well, I mentioned on that technical side of things earlier, during the break I am going to try and swap things over because it's not performing very well at all, so you'll have to bear with us for the next 20 minutes. We'll try and fix it during the warm-up, and hopefully for race 2 we're back to normal. Yeah,
we should be able to get it nice and righted, but I think these drivers I mean, yeah, blinking or not, they're going to be racing pretty hard, aren't they? Towards the end of this race, going to be Weimann has a bit of that, bit of a gap up to the rest of his class, and I think he wouldn't mind negotiating his way through on David Daniels if he can then start to chasing after the guys in front. Lucchese setting the purple lap run from P4. That's quite interesting. Weimann though, outside line at turn 1. How hard is David Daniels going to fight this one? He defends the inside, and you can just see there Jimmy not really able to loop it around the outside and put the car into position to have an inside line at turn 2, and it's, you know, rinse and repeat. They will go pretty much in the same manner again, and for David Daniels this is a perfect pattern to be in, because if he can keep ahead of the guys behind, he's going to be more than safe to the likes of Leskinen and Jennings, who are, you know, nearly 10 seconds behind now Chris Cunnington P3. But then it also means that he'll have that confidence to maybe hold his position, move himself ahead a couple of places going into race 2 as well. So really going well for the 26.
Yeah, I don't think it will be drastic enough for him to drop right down the order, of course, to let John Brayton back through, currently in P14 on the road. That would, of course, give him a nice helping hand right toward the start of pole position. What he has to be wary of, though, at the moment, Leskinen is in P15 on the road, which is exactly where he wants to be for that reverse grid order. So maybe a little bit of strategy to think about for Davy Daniels, how he can best optimise his starting position for race 2. But at the moment, a lot of these elite drivers will be thankful that he's in the position that he is in. If Jimmy Weimann has the pace to get past him but can't do it, that just invites Plurg, Humphrey and Derbyshire into the battle. Verdonk has dropped off the back. He's 2 seconds now behind Derbyshire, so that does open the door for these 4 drivers. A flash of the headlights for Sam Derbyshire in behind William Humphrey. Potentially not best pleased is the Corvette, trying to get through on Humphrey, just close there to contact as the Corvette looked for a move going into the final corner. He hasn't quite got the run on the 198 either. He'll have to try it some other time. Let's see once again, does Humphrey defend? Yes, he does, right over to the right hand side as they run down in toward turn 1. Moving back over now, is it going to be a late lunge by the Corvette? He thinks about it, moves out, dummies, stays where he is. Humphrey will stay ahead for the time being, and that's a collision. Is that Winczewski's? Yes, it is. Ignas Winczewski's. Not the best start to the championship, not the best start to this race, and now he's got Paul Cowlishaw for company as he goes around the outside, dropping a few positions. Ignas now down to P12 on the road, 11 in class. We'll have to try and see what happened there to the Lithuanian. That's cost him a spot inside the top 3. It's a 1-2-3 now for the RDSA, Danabriga, Elof and Lucchese. Nice gap to Weimann in behind.
Yeah, but I think the issue now for Lucchese is the fact that he's not got too much of a gap to Weimann, and for Plurg, as you can see on the timer tell, they are pretty much bunched up together now. Let's see a replay though of what did happen. This is from Lucchese's point of view. He just looks like he gets a little bit deep. Maybe touches the rear end of the car in front of Elof, and you can see Lucchese having to check up, and that's what's allowed Jimmy Weimann to catch up that little bit more. We'll see it on ball once more from Lucchese's point of view. Yeah, just a bit of contact, and we've seen it a couple of times in the early stages of the season. Drivers making contact to the rear of the driver in front, sent them into a spin. Happened again. Borsero ready from Winczewski. He's going to have to work his way back towards the top 10 again.
All of a sudden, we were saying that Davy Daniels might not have the pace to keep up with them, but now it looks like he's putting pressure on the South African driver, trying to get himself into the top 3, it seems. But I don't think he's going to quite have the nerve. Lucchese will not make it easy for him either. He'll be thinking, well, you're not in my class. You do not deserve to take this podium place off me, of course. It won't impact Lucchese's finishing result, but just the, the principle of it. He will not want that one to happen. Tech Plurg looks like he's in a pretty favourable position now, riding in behind the Porsche ahead of Weimann. Is Weimann going to think about it? Defending, that's a little bit questionable on the brakes. Weimann has to be careful not to understeer now. No overlap by the Corvette. They keep it in the same order. That was a little bit close. I'm surprised one of them didn't try a little bit harder there to try and get through. It's going to get pretty tense, I think. The longer that the pro driver stays in this mix, it's going to become a little bit infuriating for these guys in behind, who probably think, Dara, they've got the pace to catch up with Lucchese, but they know, approaching the half race distance already, they're running out of time a little bit.
I think getting a move on in the next lap or two is going to be crucial for them if they want to benefit themselves up the order. If not, conserving where you are, picking up the points, and enabling you to get into a good position for the start of race number 2 is going to be a critical factor here. So I think we're getting into that kind of last 8 minutes really before we get to that 10-minute mark of drivers pushing on, trying to really turn the screw on drivers around them, because otherwise if you start pushing towards the end of the race and you make a mistake, then there's no real time to recover from that. Let's see if Jimmy Vyman can finally get through on David Daniels. Outside line then into the ever-tightening right-hander. He's nearly taken the MotoGP long lap penalty by going a little bit wider there, but he's defending from Plurg, who's just in behind. He's getting tight. We could see all three of these drivers converge at turn number 1.
Yeah, it's getting pretty tense. You can see once again a flash of the headlights, a few flashes actually. Yeah, as we said, just one lap ago, it will get pretty infuriating for these elite drivers who may think they can catch up with the top 3, but like we said, David Daniels more than entitled to be in the position where he is, not under blue flags, racing for position, these drivers, and that's just the way the cookie crumbles at the moment. Humphrey, a little bit of a gap in behind Kaulashaw. Vinciszewski's the closest drivers that we have on track. Kaulashaw going side by side with Luke Van Gotel now into turn 1. Luke hasn't got the best run clearly out of the final corner. Can the Acura think about it around the outside? Is the Porsche in behind going to be able to sneak back up? Yes, he is. Kaulashaw gets a great exit up the hill, and Van Gotel's going to have to think about it around the outside. Backs out, allows Vinciszewski to hold on to that place, but it's looking pretty tense. We know the pace that the Lithuanian driver has under his belt at the moment. Kaulashaw doing what he has to do to hold on and hold that driver in behind, but P10 for Vinciszewski's is not how you want to start the championship. He hasn't had the best run of it. He's definitely got the pace. Qualifying has been there every single week, but the race results just haven't quite matched up.
Really not up to this stage, it hasn't, but there's always time, isn't there? Rest of the season, Raz Harper getting involved in this battle as we see him go just that little bit wider, coming up the hill, getting very tight as they run through Arriviati. You can see it from the track there. Great line though, fantastic overtaking from Raz Harper to get himself ahead, and don't count out the likes of Matt Hoyland around the outside as well. This is getting pretty tight. Sorry, that's it's Leskinen being overtaken by Matt Hoyland. And there's just more cars being put between Davy Daniels and Kalle Leskinen, which is not what Leskinen needs at all, to the point that now that Leskinen is now down in P18 overall. He's really playing with fire.
Yeah, well, welcome to the championship, Mr. Hoyland. He's been missing for the opening 3 weeks, and he's here now. What I must say, though, is thanks, Matt, because I don't have any cameras set up for the Audi, so if we go ahead and bang on the rear suspension... Oh, so we do. Well, there you go. It's all good, Matt. Welcome along. Not quite in the usual DXT livery that I might expect. I wonder if that's on my end. It's too late now. I'm not going to refresh them. But it's good to see an Audi join us on the track for the first time this season. The one and only, in a very nice livery, of course. That is the... what is the team named, Dara? Can you remember? It's the Iron Stitchery's team. But I don't remember. Octane? Octane Racing, I think. Is it Octane?
Yeah, it could be. I'm going to be honest with you, Joe. I don't remember. But
I wonder if
Octane rings a bell somewhere in my mind.
Is it on there somewhere, potentially? Anyway, welcome to the Audi. Nice to have one additional car on the circuit now. We're just missing the Lamborghini, and I think that would be a full set. So if anybody fancies taking a 50-point hit and turning up in the Lamborghini, then be my guest. I did see a message earlier that Hoyland is swapping his car for the rest of the season. So interestingly, we normally see people taking that 50-point hit to get into a favourable car like the Acura or the Porsche, but it seems as though Hoyland is taking that hit to drive an Audi, which seems a little bit counterintuitive, but maybe that's just me.
He might just be looking for a good time, not a long time. You don't really know, do we? But it's interesting, isn't it? Because the Audi it's clearly not the pick of choice for other teams, and drivers. But maybe he's just trying something different. Maybe seeing whether that can strength to different parts of tracks, or just different circuits that all the other cars are not giving him. Not really too sure why, but he must be enjoying himself. You'd think at least if he's changed into that car rather than just sticking with it from the start. But yeah, it's going okay. It's not going as badly as it could be going. The Mustangs aren't working too well either, are they? With Thomas Pugh and Bjorn Claessen's right towards the back of the field in those, and McLaren as well, particularly in the elite class with Vredenberg not having the greatest of evenings so far either. But it really has been a bit dominant with Acuras and Porsches and a couple of Corvettes at the start of this season. And it's interesting, isn't it, because with the Acura being new, more and more drivers are picking up onto it, and we are seeing more drivers move across to it as time goes on.
An interesting overtake here, which we've missed toward the front. It looks as though Jimmy Vyman was initially passed by Tjek Plurg, and Tjek has done exactly what Jimmy was unable to do. Down the inside into the final corner at turn 15. Davey turns into him a little bit there, maybe. I'm not quite sure if they had the angle. But that is Tjek Plurg up now, the Dutchman into P4. He's got his eyes set on Lucchese that will not be what Weimann wants to see, because he's still stuck behind him at the moment. Let's ride on board with that pack, actually, because let's see, the live gap, a little bit of a dip in the gravel there for the DDK driver, still going well, 11 seconds clear of the championship leader, but Weimann will be thinking, what do I have to do to get past him? It's not good seeing your rival get past you and then the driver ahead that you were unable to get through by, you know what I'm trying to say, unable to get by. And then William Humphrey has been brought right back into the mixer.
Yeah, I mean, and we're getting really into the stage where you've got to be in the mixer to really benefit your way through. As Van Zeist gets close, isn't it, down there as they all file through. So many drivers getting involved on each other now with 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, you can nearly throw a blanket over nearly 10 of them here. Thomas Pugh's involved. As he's just ahead of Victor Van Zeist right now, as they're nearly side by side in front, but there's no move in the end for Bruno Silva on David Hutchison. But this is getting almost worrying. You don't necessarily see how everyone's going to come out of this alive. You'd expect a couple of drivers to maybe have a couple of bumps and bruises, and we've seen that the slightest bit of rear contact can spin you around inside line just behind from Joshua Ness on Stephen Codman. That was a brave send. It looks like it's going to work out though. Yeah,
he's got it done nice and easy for the McLaren. Up the inside, a little bit wobbly. I thought the car behind might have had a little move, but in the end, it was the X-Axis Sim Sports driver who's got that one done. Does Johan Vandenberg have a favourable run here? 3 wide, potentially, yes, it is going to be 3 wide. Fingers crossed, gentlemen, we make it through. Late on the brakes by Vandenberg. Was that contact between the Acura and Joshua Ness there? Let's see, as they get up onto the power. It's been great run there by Steve Codman to stay in front of the pair of them, and it's a good move as well by, who is that? No, it's Vandenberg in the elite class. He's got himself up in a great battle there. Could have gone wrong going through one the braking zone. Very deep by the McLaren. Managed to make it stick and get himself by the Axis Sim Sports driver. He's now up into P27 on the road, but sadly for him, he's got 3 more drivers to get past before he scores any additional championship points. And this really is the closest cluster of cars that we have on the circuit, aside from, of course, Jimmy Weimann putting pressure on David Daniels still. 10 minutes to go, 2/3 of the way through this opening race, and it's getting pretty dicey in the midfield here, particularly for these drivers trying to get inside the top 10, and that's contact for sure between Hover Sanity and Danny Phillips. The side-by-side continues, but the contact is over. And are they going to make it through turn 12 side-by-side again? Just about leaves enough room. And they are going to make it through, but that was a little bit too close for comfort.
Now, I think generally we're going to see the likes of Jimmy Weimann be sick to death of seeing the back of David Daniels. He's going to, if he doesn't get past by the end of this race, at least he'll be able to start ahead and just try and keep him behind. But he's just going to be so sick of seeing the number 26 emblazoned in his windscreen, because he will feel like he should have got this move done and had got this move done a couple of times, but it hasn't quite materialised to this stage, and time really is running out. You can see Plurg as well just getting away a touch in front of him. That is his target. Top 4 really is where he should be aiming, especially after being there in the not too distant past, but it's just not materialising that way, and Jimmy Weimann's going to be increasingly frustrated, especially if like William Humphrey starts to get excited on the back of him, because William is sitting on the rear end of Jimmy in the same way that he is sitting on the back of David Daniels, and you can see him just there in that gorgeous blue and white car, just trying to find a way through. And if there's anything we know about William Humphrey, if he's given an opportunity, he will take it with both hands.
Yeah, he is. 3 points the difference between P5 and P6. 33 for finishing in the top 5, 30 for finishing in the top 6. So not too bad for Jimmy Weimann, of course. He's 6th in the championship. He's had a podium already. Hasn't finished outside the top 10 so far this season. So I think he can be thoroughly satisfied with a P5 to start his evening's worth of racing. But you're right, sitting behind a driver who maybe has held you up a little bit. Not too much, but yeah, driver out of class. It can be a little bit frustrating, but I think the long term for Mr. Weimann's championship, it's 33 points to add to his tally, so long as he can keep William Humphrey in behind, is not the worst result for a driver who really, I think, is in about as a strong position as he will hope for. Not to disrespect Jimmy, of course, but the RDSA drivers, and it seems like some of those Vulcan drivers, are going to be the favourites to be inside the top 5, and hey, if Jimmy can get himself in there tonight, that's certainly about the best start to the first portion of the championship that I think he could have hoped for. So not the worst position for him to be in. Hopefully he doesn't get too desperate. The last thing we want to see is a late lunge on Daniels at some point in these closing stages that could see him fall down the order somewhat.
He could, and I think that's what he's trying to avoid. And those little mistakes that can be costly in races, in a race-to-race basis, can be what can undo a championship so easily. We've seen it so many times, not just here in ESR, but in sim racing and real-world racing in general, that there are so many drivers who have the pace, they have the opportunities to go after the championships and just make little errors, and they may not seem much individually, but when you add them up and points lost because of them, you could be finding yourself with a championship losing deficit of less than you could have got over the course of the season. So drivers just kind of iron out those little mistakes are the ones that we often see do really, really well in championships. Even if they just finish third every single race, they're not going to be up and down the order like a yo-yo and be inconsistent enough to drop enough points to be out of contention. So it really is intriguing to see how different drivers approach different races, especially with the form that they're in. And I think for Ignis particularly, the little mistakes he's made so far this season are surely going to mean that he's a little bit more conservative as we go into the future races, because he's clearly got the pace. He's made the mistakes well in the top 3, so I think if he's able to iron those out, he's going to be right up there for the championship again come the end of the season.
Yeah, but you make a good point, but of course he can't risk too much. The longer, if he doesn't iron those out, then he's going to run out of races. As we say, it flies by. Before we know it, we'll be halfway through already, of course. 3 out of 10 rounds completed after tonight. Only a fortnight away from the halfway point of the season, so you really, really do have to make it count. And of course, those drivers who've made it count from the start of the season will have such a big advantage. That's why we run these pre-season sessions, to try and give a bit of an opportunity to iron out those mistakes. But as you said, Dara, he's always been there at the front, and he's made the mistakes in a good position, which I suppose is better than being out of them to begin with. But what you can't do is continue to make those mistakes. At the moment, though, still sat in behind Quinton Verdonk, I believe, is that his teammate, so maybe not too much battling going on between him. He might get the position if he gets a good run, and in fact, yes, it is. 2 of the Vulcan Motorsports gold liveried drivers making their way now down through 6 and 7, so I'd be surprised if Vinciszewski's has the pace. Will Quinton really make it much of a deal for him? I'm sure he'll probably just let him through.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there is a bit of a swap on the cards here, but it hasn't happened yet. Ignis. Is it Ignis? That's a combination of the names. He has to get a little bit closer to make it easier. Then we might see the swap down in towards turn number 1. Ignis may feel like he's being held up a little bit more, but hey, he's down there because Verdonk hasn't made the mistake, and Vinciszewski has to recover his place. Probably will be his cap here, P7, unless we see a big mistake from anybody further up the field. But the worst of results for him, still a decent haul of points and enough to keep him ticking over in a championship fight, which should go the way.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. Speaking of which, let's ride on board with this man a little bit as he crosses over onto lap 14 of this race. A nice margin in behind for Tristan to his teammate. It's looking very promising at the moment for a stellar finish. We said, actually, didn't we, Dara, at the start when we're looking at the teams championships, these drivers taking points off each other, but this is about the best thing that you can hope for at the front of the ESR field in the A-split, in the elite class. A 1, 2, 3 for the team, bearing in mind, of course, the top 2 drivers scoring points, so it doesn't really matter so much that Luke King isn't in this battle. It will be at the moment an Obliga and Elof who are bringing home the points for the team on this occasion, but it's a personal, probably a good personal touch for the drivers to share a podium with your teammates is something that we have rarely seen. In fact, I don't remember a time that we've had 3 drivers from the same team sharing the podium.
I mean, they've nearly had it this season, haven't they? It just didn't materialise come the end of the race, but this is a fantastic showing again from a team that has, I think it's fair to say, not had the easiest of times. They've been very quick drivers, but the likes of Season 4, Season 5, they were right up there fighting for the championships. It's been a little bit more difficult the last couple of seasons, don't get me wrong. They've still been up there. But coming into this season to have the 3 of them right into the front of the field and looking like they're going to take a sweep of the podium just shows how good and the good place that RDSA are in right now, and why everyone really has to be worried every single evening when they rock up of what RDSA can do and what their benchmark is going to be, quite frankly, because for the team's championship, I mean, who can beat this kind of form? It's incredible, really, to see that they can replicate it week after week.
That's a very good point. That is the question that the drivers will be asking. What can we do to beat this? If these guys are going to turn up every week and pull out these kind of performances, is there anything that we can do to beat it? Of course, practice makes perfect, which is what these guys so favourably do. We said earlier it was Justin Elof who will score points for the teams. At the moment, Luke Casey really beginning to close up that gap. The last lap time as they cross over the line was a 48.4 and a 47.4 for Lucchese. So Luke has gained over a second on Justin on that last lap alone. Now finds himself right on the rear bumper of that RDSA machine. I'm sure they'll hold position. I would like to think that they'll hold position unless Justin really does fall off the pace, of course. Fingers crossed, Dara, that Lucchese hasn't underfueled again this session, because we wouldn't like to see that once again. Wouldn't want to see it at all. Hopefully we don't see it again.
Well, I mean, if anybody looks like they've underfueled, it looks like it's going to be Justin Eloff if he's losing that much time. But I mean, Luke looks like he's okay. We just have to make sure we get to the line first before we call it, because we've come to line. Can't necessarily call it, even if they're coming out of the final corner. It's not necessarily until they cross the line, so we know exactly who's going to help. But talking about what can help to catch, maybe they have to use some trophy AI, Joe, to help them work out what they need to do to catch up to the RDSA boys, because it's just been so impressive to see them. This is Davy Daniels, though. This is not what he needed at all, spinning around.
Well, is it? It won't be, but just hypothesizing. Is it a little technical mistake there, just to let a few drivers through? He's still well within the top 15 reverse order. Crucially for him, Kalle Leskinen has dropped out of that, so Kalle will start in P18 as things stand, and of course Mr. David Daniels will start in P5 or P6, currently in P10 on the road. So yeah, obviously it won't have been intentional, but it won't have impacted him all that much, because he's still going to win the race, and he's still going to start in an even better starting position for the second race. So yeah, a spin. I mean, has there ever been another session where a spin like that is actually arguably beneficial for a driver? Probably not.
Can't think of one. But yeah, whoops, made the mistake. Oh well, I guess I'll start in the front again. It's a worse dilemma to have, isn't there? Really. I mean, you've then got this battle with the likes of Raz Harper and John Breitenbach fighting. These guys are fighting over those final reverse grid positions. John going right to the left-hand side of the track, cutting off the corner. Oh, there was always going to be a little bit of contact. It feels like Jean turned in a little bit early there on the car on the inside, and he spun around, and that's going to take him out of that top 15 and out of contention, really.
There it is, another battle here coming into turn one. Victor Van Zijs on the outside of Bruno Silva, doesn't make that one stick, backs out and drops back where he was. This battle still continuing. Hoyland fancying an opportunity to get through. It'll be our penultimate lap now when Tenobreger crosses the line. We'll have one more circuit before we take that break, and quite frankly I'm looking forward to the break so I can try and sort out these stutters. A little bit of pressure by Kevin Daniels on the back of Matt Hoyland. Kalle Leskinen watching on from this. He does not want to get involved with this. A nice P2 will be a consistent finish for him, of course, but he'll be praying that a couple of these guys come together. In fact, is he going to go for it here? Kalle, of course, he can get himself on pole position if he can make up just 2 more places, but he's got to get on the back of Matt Hoyland, and as we say, only a lap and a half to go. He hasn't got that move done. Looking increasingly more unlikely, sadly, for the Finn, and Matt Hoyland could turn up and get pole position right from the offset here.
The last lap, though, that they're coming around. I think it is, actually, because
already?
Yes,
well, there we go. Justin Obliger wins the race. He caught me off by surprise there. It was over a minute, I think, to go before he crossed over the line, just under the lap time that we need, of course. So, Tenobreger, Eloff and Lucchese. It's a 1-2-3 for the RDSA team at the outset of the session tonight. Jack Plurg gets himself up 4 places from the start to get himself inside the top 4. Jimmy Vyman, of course, did eventually get past David Daniels as he made that mistake, stayed inside the top 5. William Humphrey up 4 places as well into P6. Great drive for him, trying to stay within touching distance of Tenobreger and Lucchese. That will help his efforts staying in 3rd. And then, of course, it was David Daniels in the end who won out in the Pro Class. Kalle Leskinen, Chris Jennings rounding out the podium for those drivers. And now I may just take a little bit of a break to try and resolve these issues while we still have time, Dara. So I'm going to cut away, I think, for a moment just while we make this happen. So if you bear with us, and then we'll be back in just under 5 minutes time. Fingers crossed we will have this all sorted for everybody. Okay, so I think we're back online. It should just jump cut straight from what we left to us being back now. I'm just going to give it a few seconds on my end to update so I can just double check that we're back online. And of course, typically in all of this technology, you try and do something to make it better. What does it do? It makes it worse. So fingers crossed we get rid of those stutters. We are back, which is good news. Fingers crossed it's going to be smooth now for the rest of the session, and I'll stop trying to be clever and trying to change things. Stick to what you know. More times than not, it'll just more times than not, it'll be fine. So that's where we are now. What we'll do quickly, Dara, while we're here, is we will cut back here and we will run through the finishing positions from those first two races. I'll get ahead and start with the results in the Elite Division. So, Mr. Tristan Dunnebrigger wins out in front, the 170 for RDSA with a 2.5 second gap in behind his two teammates. What a sight that'll be. Get that one screenshot, lads. Dunnebrigger, Elof and Lucchese, 3 South Africans, all for RDSA Esports, on the podium in the Elite class. Tiek Plurg, the Dutchman, the leading Vulcan Motorsports gold driver, will finish inside the top 4 ahead of Jimmy Vyman, who sat there for the majority of the race, converted that top 5 in the end. His second best result of the season. William Humphrey, a good push from him, the leading British driver, from 10th up to 6th for the Vulcan Fasteners Glasstec Racing team. Ignas Vinchezewski is another disappointing one for him that we've highlighted, but he won't be too disappointed with that. P7 is not the worst position in the world. Sam Derbyshire, Quinton Verdonk and Luke Van Gortel will round out the top 10 ahead of Paul Cowlishaw, Luke King, Raz Harper, Matt Hoyland and Kevin Daniels. I believe Hoyland will start on that pole position slot coming into race 2. John Breitenbach, Thomas Pugh, Bjorn Klassens, Dominic Oversanity, Jakob Krafek, Miles Owens and Joran Brandenburg will round out the top 22 and will round out our full set of elite drivers. Sadly for Owens and Brandenburg, they won't score any points on this occasion.
And over in the pro class, it was David Daniels with that spin, not really letting up the form that he's put on so far, winning the race. And the Belgian driver had quite a comfortable margin back to Kalle Leskin, even with that spin. Chris Jennings is on the podium ahead of Biagio Cutrale in his home race in the Ferrari. P4, good result for him. I think he'll be looking for a podium with a Ferrari Italian Mugello combination in race number 2. Marcel Henschel ahead of David Hutchison and Bruno Silva rounded out the top 7 with Victor Van Zijs, Joshua Ness and Danny Phillips inside the top 10, picking up a decent result in what was quite a tense and congested midfield. Joshua Cohn and Austin Eper 11th and 12th, the first of the Americans, ahead of Malcolm Coates, his countryman. In both of those, of course, in the Acuras. Marcel Breitenbach and Lawrence van der Water found themselves 14th and 15th, just ahead of Wayne Bass, and those three are nearly side by side across the line. Evan Main and Matt Simo, Robin L. Brown and Jordan Ellis inside the top 20 with Jeffrey Damon and Alex Fretwell, the top 22 in the end. That's not where we end, though. Lorenzo Gorgetto, another Italian with a Ferrari and Mugello combination, finished for him down in P23. Trin Gonzalez, the Puerto Rican, was 24th ahead of Gilles Philipparts, the last driver on the lead lap. Stephen Common was a lap down in 26th, and Lawrence Dedap had an awful first race by his standards. 8 laps down. He didn't score any points. Of course, being in 27th, he's got a lot of work to do in race number 2.
Well, you catch me perfectly as I finish my brief snack. So, got a little bit of energy. Going again, ready for the second race. And we've timed that just about to perfection, Dara. The time clicked down to 0. And the drivers, particularly Mr. Matt Hoyland here, are just about getting ready to get us underway for our second race. Tristan joined us in the chat there momentarily. Race 2 from P15 will be super tough. Times are close, hoping for a clean run. So, of course, Tristan behind Elof, behind Lucchese from P15, 14 and 13. Keep our eyes on those guys. See how they carve the field open at the start of this second session. It'll be all eyes on Matt Hoyland, who might feel a little bit pressured here, Dara. Hasn't raced with us so far this season. All of a sudden, finds himself on pole in the Audi. He's going to be under a little bit of pressure, I think. But I'm sure Matt's experience will see him through. Should be no problems for him.
Yeah, there should definitely be at least some hope and some confidence to use going into the second race of the evening. But I especially think with the drivers near the front of the field, it's going to be really exciting, because with the grid that we've got, the guys right at the front could create quite an exciting race.
Good, Dara. I'll leave this one to you. You can run through as many as you like. But yeah, we'll run through, starting with Mr. Matt Hoyland.
Right then, he will lead us to green ahead of Raz Harper, the Englishman. Leads Luke King, the RDSA car. They're never far away from the front, are they? Luke King flying the flag up near the front, at least for the start of race 2. Paul Colashaw ahead of Luke Van Gortel, and David Daniels pretty much where he started in race number 1. Will start in the same place for race number 2 with about as much comfort to the cars behind in terms of his class as he had before. Quinton Verdonk alongside Sam Derbyshire make up row number 4. With Ignas Vincichevsky's trying to recover the points from his spin earlier on, and William Humphrey making up row number 5. Jimmy Vyman, Siad Plurg ahead of Luke Lucchese, Justin Eloff and Tristan Obrick, the 3 RDSA guys who were 1, 2 and 3 in race 1, and now find themselves 13th, 14th and 15th. They're just ahead of Kevin Daniels, who narrowly missed out on getting himself in that reverse grid. We've got Kalle Leskinen and Chris Jennings, though, 2nd and 3rd in the Pro class in race 1. They will start 2nd and 3rd in class again, and with Biaglo Cutrale right behind him, who makes up the start of the 10th row, alongside John Brighton back. Marshall Henschel and Thomas Pugh make up row number 11, with David Hutchinson, the Scotsman, alongside the Portuguese Bruno Silva in 23rd and 24th. It's an all-Dutch row 13, though, with Brian Claessens and Victor Van Zijs, with Joshua Ness and Dominic Horvath-Sandy continuing that pattern of pros and AMs, goodness me, elites and pros mixing it in with each other. Danny Phillips and Joshua Cohen make up row 15 and just inside the top 30, with Austin Eper and Jacob Krafek, the Czech driver, in the top 32. Miles Owen, Jerome Vredenberg and Malcolm Coates are inside the top 35, with Marcel Breitbach joining him on row number 18. Lawrence van der Water, Wayne Bass and Evan Main and Matt Simo round out the top 40. We continue on to see a few more, don't worry, a few more of the pro drivers. Robin O'Brien and Jordan Ellis on row 21, Jeffrey Darman and Fretwell row 22, with the grid rounded out by Lorenzo Gorgetto, Young Gonzalez, Gilles Philippe Arts, Stephen Codman and Lawrence De Dapper. 49 cars. It's a busy track again, Joe, but I think drivers are going to go for it that little bit more when they've got nothing to think about in terms of a grid to make up for a future race, because this is it. Once they leave this race and finish with the checkered flag, I'm going to get my point out at some point. When they finish this race, Joe, there's no more racing, so they don't have to worry about making mistakes. There we go. Got there in the end.
Is that like one of those moments where like whoever wins the race usually scores more points?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I didn't know where the sentence was going.
Or the
but
classic,
it went somewhere.
Whoever scores the most goals usually wins the game. I mean, can't go wrong. With punditry like that, you really cannot go wrong. Correct.
Exactly.
We've got loads of them, mate. We've got absolutely loads of them. Matt Hoyland, however, will fancy setting. Well, in fact, he will set the fastest lap time after the first lap, of course. But let's see how he fares going into this. Of course, it'll be a little bit disappointing, I think, in qualifying. I think you're probably right, Dara, to suggest that Hoyland has probably chosen the Audi for more of an enjoyment rather than competitiveness. So fingers crossed for him, of course. Former teammate of mine, always good to see him at the front of the order. And I do quite like the Audi. It might not be the most competitive car, but it looks good, it sounds good. I wish it was just a little bit better and a little bit more common. But we're going to see him as he comes around the final corner to lead us away down into turn 1, of course. 50 drivers with us tonight. A great turnout, as always. And it's good to see it actually prolonging into the season. Normally, we get good turnout on race 1, and then it quickly falls off a cliff after the first few rounds. But we're still going strong as we enter into round 3. As you just rightly said there, Dara, 30 minutes left for these drivers to contend with. Hoyland will lead us down toward the line, of course, which we're just about to see come into picture as they dip under the crest and come back over the white line, which still isn't on the screen, is Hoyland's mark to get us underway. Final few cars coming round the final corner. The Mercedes bringing up the rear, and it's going to be soon time to go racing once again. 30 minutes. There it is. The Audi's away. And it looks as though Paul Cowlishaw in behind has got a good start. It's going to potentially be 3 wide. Raz Harper caught napping a little bit there. Was he in two minds about whether he could go or not? Contact already. Cowlishaw off the road. Those two have done extremely well there. Not to send that back over the circuit. That would have been a disaster for some of these drivers. It looks as though everyone is making their way through the first couple of corners okay. Further up the pack, 2 wide there. In a couple of scenarios, Chris Jennings has dropped down 2 places off the start. David Daniels is off. He is round. Where is he? I can't even catch him. He's gone off the circuit. Disaster for the winner in the Pro class. That, the reverse grid there hasn't done him any favours. And was it not Luke King that you were talking about before, Dara?
Yeah.
Starting at the front, coming out the pit lane, having started in the pit lane. That's not good for RDSA. However, we'll have to keep an eye on where the other 3 of them are. Lucchese up into P10, Denobrig at P11 and 12. Good start for those guys. William Humphrey He's down and falling around the order. He's in the gravel. Where is that? Exit to turn 6, I think. Difficult one for Humphrey. It doesn't look like he's got too much damage. Hoyland leads well off the start of the race.
Yeah, important for him to get away nicely. Luke Van Gortel keeping him honest though. Rice Harper, I really don't know how Harper and Cowlishaw kept it out of the wall there, because they were heading straight to doom really, but somehow Cowlishaw, it would have been an absolute co-brown for him. He's probably going to have to change the seat at the end of this race, but
Very good.
really scary moment, pushed right towards the wall. Miracle that it didn't go into it. Hoyland is leading, but it does look like that Luke Van Gortel in his Porsche may have a little bit more confidence and composure in the opening lap. He's just, you know, taking it a little bit of time, corner by corner out of him. That gap was about 0.6 of a second, now back to just under 1/4 of a second, and here he comes. You can see in the slipstream, Van Gortel is gaining, and pretty early down the straight as well. We could see him in for P1 at the start of only lap 2.
Yeah, here he goes then. He's defending the inside line, as you would expect. Hoyland moves slightly back over to the left-hand side. Luke Van Gortel looks to go around the outside, late on the brakes, not this time for the Porsche. And look at that, here comes Rice Harper coming right back into this battle, switching on the exit, of course, leaves enough room. No pressure in behind, however. He'll not want to see this, will Mr. Van Gortel. He's now under pressure from the cars behind. Oh, very wide there by Cowlishaw. Will have a little bit of damage, I'm sure, on the right side of that Porsche. From that, well, yeah, as we said, Dara, from that, it wasn't really a move, was it? It was a very, very close to disaster moment for both of those drivers. Not really sure how it went wrong, because they're basically driving in a straight line toward the entry into turn 1. Thankfully, I just had, I had these visions of them just coming straight back across the circuit, bowling everybody out the way, but thankfully they both kept it pacing in the right direction, which is quite rare, I think, on this platform. It's often once you get glued together, you eventually just get spread apart, and there's not much you can do about it. Ignis thinking about it, doesn't have the overlap. Room left nicely though by Sam Derbyshire to allow that move some potential, but he snuffed him out for the time being. Ignis is going to be a man with some fire in his belly, I'm sure. Oh, look at that. That was a bit optimistic. He's made contact, and he is going to go up the inside. I'm surprised that he's going to hold on to that position there, because it wasn't the cleanest by the Lithuanian, but he does have that fire, and we've seen it on full display there.
Yeah, really interesting. I mean, Ignace doing everything he can, isn't he, really, to work his way up the order. Wide though into the final turn, inside line there for Derbyshire as he gets through, and I don't really know what happened there for Ignace. He just went a little bit wide. Maybe he wasn't giving the place back, was he? Surely.
Maybe.
But Derbyshire's, maybe he was, but Derbyshire is back through, and he'll have to have another go. Really down at turn number 1. Hoyland fighting with Van Gortel again. They've got a lap car to worry about as well on the run down towards turn 1. Van Gortel trying to go around the outside again, but we've seen it again and again and again. The camber on the circuit at the opening corner makes it near impossible in these GT cars at least to make that move around the outside. So the defensive line into turn 1 can be really effective. The issue for Hoyland is they're all bunching up behind, and very soon we're going to have some of the fastest drivers in the league right on his tail and fighting inside the top 10. Well, in top 5, I should say.
Yeah, Lucchese is up 5 positions off the start. Dumbliger up 4, so they're making their way through. Not so good for Elof. He's the trailing RDSA car at the moment. But like you said, Vinciszewski's and Lucchese sharing the circuit at the moment. Actually, that'll be an interesting battle to ride on board with. Let's see what view Tech Plurk has of that one. It might not be a view of the back of this battle. He might be in the middle of it shortly if he can get himself up through past Lucchese. But you're totally right, Darren. As these guys get into their stride, we're definitely going to see some close battles. Look at that. Ignis Vinciszewski's going side by side once again. He took the place this time last lap and he made it. Wow, that was very, very close. Not doing himself any favours either, because look, Lucchese fancied it around the outside there. He's been shunted out as well by the Acura. Not the cleanest opening start by Ignis at the moment, but that's racing. He's getting his elbows out and he's not making it easy for anybody around him at the moment.
Yeah, it's just... it's very tight, isn't it, with the reverse grid that we see. Oh, is that ascend into the final corner? Oh, it was. And Vinciszewski went for it. He's hit off Derbyshire. He went for it in the same place that he lost it the lap before. He's caused the contact, and I would not be surprised if something more is said about that post-race. Derbyshire's not going to be happy himself, and you probably feel the same if you're in his shoes. So not good news for him at all. Hoyland having to defend again into the opening corner. Luke Van Gortel again, I looked for the inside line, but then dive back to the outside. I don't know whether he was too scared about the angle that he may have had to attack down into turn 1, because the issue for him right now is that he may be able to push it a little bit more to find that inside line and could make a huge send, but the issue for him is that if it doesn't come off well, Raz Harper is right there and ready to take both the positions, and if Luke Van Gaal can get through Matt Hoyland, that'd be great, but all of a sudden he's got Raz Harper for him to overtake as well, so really is a difficult position to be in, and we could see this one run for quite some time before we see it explode into some actual moves happening.
Yeah, that Audi, quite a wide machine as it is, but Hoyland's going to have to make it even wider if he wants to hang on. There could be a chance here for Hoyland to defend throughout turns 2 to 15 and then just, hold on to it going into turn 1. It looks as though that's going to be Luke's best opportunity to try and get past the British driver. As things stand, of course, Hoyland could make a mistake, but he is a pretty consistent driver, so that'll be the thought at the moment for Hoyland. Can he just keep him behind during all of these tricky high-speed corners throughout the lap and just make it stick into turn 1, make it difficult, get your elbows out, and can he hope perhaps that the back in behind, of course, the likes of Harper, Kalashaw, Verdonk, and let's not discount Vichysevskis and Lucchesi as they slowly catch up to the back of this pack. It could be 6 or 7 drivers in with a chance at being in a podium, optimistically trying to get themselves onto the podium. Here we go again then. Luke Van Gaal, we've seen it the last 2 laps. Has he got the run on Hoyland? He's going to be sucked into the back of that Audi a little bit. It's such a long run down toward the opening corner. Slipstream will take effect mostly every single lap. Hoyland taking up that defensive position. He's not going to be alongside going into turn 1. It may be a little bit costly there, unnecessary for Hoyland to take such a defensive line, but it has worked out. Once again, they're going to go all the way around, and again, something would tell me, Dara, it's not going to be easy for Luke to get a move done unless, of course, Hoyland makes a mistake. As I said, I think turn 1 will be his best opportunity to try and take the lead. Got to be conscious, though, of those 4 or 5 drivers who are going to be slowly gaining on these 2 throughout the next 22 minutes.
It's just not really a nice problem to have if you've got the likes of Vichysevskis, Lucchesi, Plurg, Dinobrica and Elof not a million miles away and kind of in the back of the mind. Ignace has got that gap to close up to Verdonk, but you'd imagine that gap is going to close within the next 10-15 minutes or so at least, or at most really, because they will have to catch up. If Vichysevskis can't close that gap, then you'd expect Lucchesi to be able to make a move and close it himself, because with all due respect to Matt Hoyland and Luke Van Gaal, they aren't quite, and we've seen it from qualifying in race 1, on exactly the same pace as the guys that were running right at the front in race number 1, so you would expect them to come back, especially with Ignace in that little bit of clean air. Hoyland doing a stunning job though to hold on as he is for the time being, the only Audi in the race, doing stunning job to be at the front of the field, so maybe it's not all bad to have one of those cars with 4 rings on, but we'll have to see if Luke Van Gaal can change that. Perhaps Harper can get involved as well. I think Harper and Cowlish are probably still lucky, or feeling lucky, to be alive after turn 1 on lap 1.
Yeah, I think so. We are going to cut back to check a few replays shortly once things begin to settle down. I was going to say, lap times for Vichysevskis and Lucchesi, best part of half a second better off than the guys toward the front. This time round, it's a 47.4. 47.4. Where's Lucchesi? There it is. 46.7. You just knew that one was coming in. Nearly a second, 7/10 quicker for Vichysevskis over the majority of the top 5, and as we said at the start, Dara, he can feel that he needs a good result here after we said what we said. He's made some big mistakes. 3 wide here. There's an elite driver in the mix. That's Bjorn Klassens in the Mustang further up ahead, and Biagio Coutrelet is doing well at the moment to stay put, but Kelly Leskinen has lost the lead of the race. That's cut away momentarily because I do want to see what happened at race start between a few of these drivers, particularly for this man here, William Humphrey, who just went off. In fact, we've cut right back to where we were just there, up the inside. Is it a mistake of his own doing? Nope, he gets taken out sadly by, I think is that one of the DDKs of the sim racing, and once you're on the gravel, very difficult to stop. Humphrey's lucky actually to still be in the race with a whack like that into the barrier, and this is a decent little battle here, defensive there, aggression by Coutrelet as he defends against Leskinen, who backs out nicely. He's got pressure from Thomas Pugh in the Mustang in behind him to deal with at the moment.
Yeah, getting a little bit leery on the outside as well. Interesting to have the Hutcherson, Ness and Jennings as well in the mix in that pro class, with the top 6 with Phillips as well, right close together. They have got the likes of Pugh and Jimmy Vineman kind of in the mix, but good to see that we have a bit of a pro battle unfolding for the lead of the race, the elite and the pro class, with absolutely nothing between the leading groups after a third already has elapsed. Thomas Pugh maybe just going to make his way through. Well, he needs to make his way through if he wants to have a go at the likes of Kevin Daniels, John Breitenbach and Bjorn Klaasens, who do lead that pack before we see the likes of Kutrale and Leskinen. Leskinen, though, having a bit of a go. They're pretty much side by side as they cross the line, and the Porsche could have a great one around the outside. Kutrale's got the inside line. Can Leskinen be the first to make a really good move around the outside tonight? Let's see.
Holds on to it for the time being, of course, the lead in the Pro Class Championship heating up at the moment, as you say, Dara, nearly approaching the halfway stage already, and it's a great scrap to see. Luc van Gotel, Matt Hoyland, Biagio Kutrale and Kalle Leskinen, 4 drivers battling for 2 potential race victories here, and it's great to see them so close to one another nearly halfway through this session. Harper and Cowlishaw, let's cut back to that one. I think I may have found it on the timing sheet, so let's see. This is a gamble. Let's see if it's the right one in the run down to turn 1. Yes, it is. Let's see what happened there. 3 wide, you can see, and then, it's the Porsche initially who just came over. But how good was it there, Dara, for those two both to stay where they were? Let's see if we can get Paul Cowlishaw's perspective here, all the way to the left, and then before he knows it, he's been put into the pit wall, comes off the throttle, manages to keep it in a straight line. He'll be counting his blessings after that one, because that could have been end of his race before it even began.
Yeah, and that's really the key. And generally, at this stage of the championship as well, championships could feel like they're over before they really begin. With a couple of poor results towards the start of the season, we've seen drivers have difficulties, not least Ignas Vincenchevski's, who has struggled to almost, translate the pace that he has showed into a points tally that he can be proud of and can be competitive with going into this championship. But some drivers who maybe feel like they're overperformed, they're in a good position now. It's how they can build off of that. For drivers chasing the points, it's almost the same concept. Oh, so I'm going to interrupt that idea. For Luc van Gotel to come down the inside. That's a good move. He finally found the inside line. And again, it was effective. First time he's been able to try it. It's going to work immediately. And Matt Hoyland now slipping down to P2. He's got a little bit of work to do because we've got Raz Harper and Paul Cowlishaw ready to pick up the pieces. If he gets a bit too greedy, go for the move again.
How's your nerve, Hoyland? Is he going to immediately try and send it back? Is he going to bottle to the pressure of the drivers in behind around the outside? He looks through 4 and 5. We said the only opportunity really for the change of position would have been turn 1. Sadly for Hoyland, couldn't defend it on the inside anymore. Allowed the Porsche through up the inside, which is of course exactly where you want to be to make a move like that stick. Thankfully for Hoyland, it hasn't gone from bad to worse. The drivers in behind will have been hungry for that position. And look at this, not good news now for these top 3. Not good news for Hoyland as he goes off the circuit. Is that going to invite Raz Harper into the mix? I think not. He's got away with one there, I think, Hoyland. But as we said earlier, Dara, all the while that Hoyland's been defending, that allows the likes of Lucchese and Vincenchevski's back through into this pack. And now we have one hell of a battle on here. In fact, look at that. Denobreger and Elof aren't too far behind this either. If we ride on board with Van Gotel, look behind, he's got a nice margin. Hoyland, though, this train, all the way down from 2nd to 10th. One mistake from any of these drivers could really promote some of these guys into a very, very favourable position. Eyes on Vincenchevski's and Lucchese, though. The second half of this race, can they do enough to try and get themselves back into the top 5?
That really is the question, isn't it, as we run our way through towards the latter stages of this race. But it's so tricky, isn't it, when you're in some of these trains as well, to really pick your way through in the way that you want to. Lucchese can see the lead of the race. There it is, just up in front, going through turn 1, and can comfortably see it. The issue is, he's got cars that he will feel like he's quicker than, all the way between himself and the front of the field, at a track where clear-cut overtaking opportunities are pretty hard to come by. This isn't, the Red Bull ring where you've got turn 3 and turn 4 where everybody knows you can make a move. This is a much trickier track to curate an overtake, and you're really going to have to try hard to make it stick. It's been a bit of a theme. Portimao wasn't the easiest place last week to make a move. Road America will be a little bit easier next week, but we're not there yet. And just making a good use of the few opportunities you're going to have is what is going to get you to the front of the field. I don't know what's happened to Matt Hoyland. He's dropping down the order.
He's gone.
Connected. He really has disconnected. That's gutting for him. Having such a good race. It's going to promote every position, isn't it? Really?
That's a big shame. Verheulen there still falling down the order. We don't see him on the circuit, so that might be a session over for him. Devastating. Led so well for half this race right at the front, and then sadly it did go from bad to worse, not for the reasons that we might have thought. Instead, technology has got the better of him. It's had the better of me tonight, and now sadly for Matt, it's got the better of him as well. Is that Winchesevsky's? Yes, it is. Winchesevsky's now, all of a sudden, Dara, into the top 3. He got himself from 7th up into the top 5, and now with Heulen's demotion, that's him into 4th. And then he's got past Cowlishaw, now on to the podium. Luke Lucchesi thinking about it as well, getting past the 47 of Quinten Verdonk. Lucchesi and Winchesevsky's exchanging positions here. Cowlishaw will be next up for Lucchesi to try and get through. It's a very, very competitive fixture here, as we can see. The Vulcan Motorsports drivers surrounded by the RDSA drivers, and as we saw around Road America, Dara, this competition between these teams will be pretty intense. I think it's safe to say throughout this championship season. Can Obliga put some pressure on them, or will it be Lucchesi who's first to blink? Can Quinten get through? That's not what you want to see as teammates side by side. That's going to invite RDSA right back into the mix. Has Obliga got the run here? Let's ride on and see as they head through turns 4 and 5. Surely you don't want to make a move downhill through 6. That would be a little bit risky.
It wouldn't. Depends how much of an overspeed you get. It's not going to be enough really for Tristan to have any kind of go, but Quinten, I don't think necessarily just as quick as Plurg over the course of the evening so far. You can see the little bit more momentum that Tristan can carry. Had to shave a little bit of that off as they ran their way to the bottom of the hill. Will rise up towards the crest now, but he's not going to have any kind of good enough of a run to have a go down in towards the chicane. But you can just see drivers going that little bit wide, kicking up the gravel, kicking up the dust as they continue on, with Bruno Silva having his own battle. Oh, right behind Victor Van Zijst. Bit of a front end missing as well on that Porsche, with Austin right behind him in the number 33. But it's intriguing at the front of the field to see how all of the cars now are mixing in with each other. Winchesevsky's, Lucchesi, Zanobriga and Elof, those front 4 from race number 1, with Plug as well. Oh, getting involved. Victor Van Zijst nearly having it sent on him. It's all getting very nitty-gritty, isn't it? 12 minutes to go.
I must say, incredible driving there really by Derbyshire. You know, put the pressure on, stuck the nose up the inside, but was able to control that brake pedal just enough to prevent a spin, which is exactly what you want to see. You don't like it when it's a sort of half-assed lazy move up the inside and you end up spinning your opponent round, but that was just about enough pressure, but he still held it nice and comfortably. He is going to look around the outside. Here goes the Corvette. Great move. I don't think he's going to get the exit on him, but he has momentarily got ahead. In fact, he might have just proved me wrong here. He's got the switchback and he's got the position. Brilliant move there by the Corvette in an unorthodox place to make a move, as we were saying, Dara. Not like some other circuits. Could be the move of the night, that one, around the outside of the final corner.
Yeah, it really could be. There's a few drivers that have made some exquisite moves up to this point, but we're going to see this one again. Sam Derbyshire coming into the final corner where he spun out, or was spun out at the start of this race, just braking later, hooking the car around, giving enough respect and room to the car on the inside. Look at that momentum and a real ability to judge exactly where the edge of the circuit is. Really impressive to see him make that one stick and put himself another position up the field. And he's not going to be happy with where he is, because he will feel like he should be right towards the front of the field after the good start that he had, but he's recovering well to put himself maybe into the top 15 by the end of this race.
It looks like Winchesevsky's has got past Raz Harper as well in the interim. Let's see how that one was done. Looks like it's going to be a straightforward move into turn 1, but again potentially around the outside. Is it for the 109? Let's see. Defended well by Raz on the inside line. He's going to swing it, and as you say, Dara, hook it around the outside. Backed out there did Raz. Doesn't fancy defending that one. Winchesevsky's having a great race at the moment, up 7 places. Luke Lucchesi sadly hasn't been able to stick with him though, and he stays where he is inside the top 5. I did want to make a point about that move we saw earlier through the exit of the final corner. Great for Derbyshire. You could see the traction that he got. It was pretty equal, but then the straight line speed seemed to be the advantage. So potentially less downforce for the Corvette, but it was enough for him to hang it around the outside. Well, there's a little bit less grip, of course. A few more marbles on that side of the track. I don't think that move can be overstated enough, really. Very good position. Sadly, not for the most points, it's safe to say, but nonetheless, that's what we race for, isn't it? Moves like that. And now we might be about to see a move by Luke Lucchesi, who's getting awfully close to the Porsche ahead.
Yeah, and Lucchesi just getting tighteningly. Well, it looked like maybe he had a bit of a run on Cowlishaw down here in towards 6 and 7. It's not going to work out. Much better line though, it seems. As Cowlishaw went a bit deep, is he going to use the momentum through the Arabiatas, I should say, up towards the chicane? Looks like he will. Slower entry, faster exit. That is exactly what's going to get him that little bit closer. Great line here from Luke Lucchese. He's got such overspeed on Paul here. Down in towards the chicane, just not enough to lay any kind of claim to an inside or an outside line. We'll have to try maybe down in towards the ever-tightening turn 12, but you can't really afford to let the likes of Harper and Vincichevskis get too far away, otherwise the opportunities to catch them are going to be reduced. Little bit of contact as they work their way through. Lucky enough to spin himself out there with Plurg now just in behind. Cowlishaw loses 1. Could he lose 2 as well? Side by side between the Porsche and the Corvette. I think the Corvette's got through. Indeed, it has. And then Tristan Obriga may fancy his chances of finding his way through. Inside line at the final. Got a bit of a stand. Nearly hits the back of Plurg, but just about misses him and continues on. Cowlishaw, though, torrid time, down 3 spots.
Yeah, that was a frantic sector for Cowlishaw there. I don't think you would have envisioned that going so wrong. Lucchese, a little bit of a touch on the rear right, just about sent him off line. Then the 2 drivers, Plurg and Obriga, made the most of it, got through. That was one hell of a lunge by the Acura to get himself open. Is there another one coming here? Justin Eloff up the inside of Cowlishaw, and this time, 3rd time unlucky for Cowlishaw. He's been in the wars tonight, and he's been spun around there by the 3rd and final RDSA cars. If it didn't happen with Lucchese, didn't happen to Obriga. Sadly though, this time it has happened with Justin Eloff. So Tjek Plurg is now the Vulcan car in between all of these prancing horses of the RDSA machines. So we've got 7 minutes to try and contend with this. Not great for Cowlishaw. It is good for RDSA. They're into the top 6, top 7 if you want to include Justin as well. All the while, Luke Van Gortel is going to have to think about this one now, because he's got the fastest man on the circuit, Ignas Vincichevskis, who, as we said, Dara, right at the start, he looked like he was up for it, and I think he'll know, being within a second of the leader with 7 minutes to go, with the pace, the qualifying pace particularly, that we know he has, yeah, I think it's maybe his to lose at this point, unless Van Gortel can do a stout job in defending for the next sort of 5 or 6 laps.
It's because whether he's going to be able to, you'd say that Vincichevskis has shown that he'd make it send anywhere if he can. Would not be surprised if that happens again when he catches up to Luke Van Gortel, who has really done well in the opening 23 minutes to still be in the lead of this race. He overtook the Audi, didn't he? Getting to the inside line at turn 1 and was able to pull away at the front. Now we've got that chasing pack. The guys that won race 1, that were fastest in qualifying, right there with him. And it's just going to be a case of how high can he stay in the order? Can he stay in the lead of the race? Went nearly as fast as Vincichevskis on that last lap, actually. His fastest lap of the race, but still about half a tenth slower than what Vincichevskis could do. It's good news for Van Gortel if that's all that he can gain over the course for that, with, 4 to go, I believe, now?
Yeah, ticking down.
5, I think.
Well, really that many ticking down. So it is possible, and we've seen that Luke's managed to get past Hoyland earlier in the race. He's seen the tactics that Hoyland deployed, so maybe he can try and do the same. And as we've said, it's difficult to overtake around this place. So turn 1, the only real clear overtaking opportunity, of course, getting into that slipstream, pulling yourself down the start-finish straight, down and toward turn 1. Best opportunity for Vincichevskis to get his first race victory of this championship. Obriga all over the back of... sorry, no, he's not. He's got Justin Eloff, who's just dropping off the back. Obriga will fancy getting up past him. We were saying last week, Dara, I think it was Lucchese got by and then didn't really hang about for his teammates at the moment. Of course, Lucchese too busy trying to get himself on the podium, which is totally understandable, but he could really help Tristan out here by just making it a little bit difficult for the Vulcan driver in that Corvette to try and help his teammate get through. But equally, we have seen Obriga's not shy from getting on the brake pedal, is he? A little bit late. If he gets a run, he won't need a second opportunity to make a move, and he's done it once already into this corner. I'm sure we'll see it again before the end of the session. Jeroen Brandenburg is round and down. He's just off there. I think that's in turn 11. Yes, it is. Exit of turn 11. So difficult one there. Sort of down the running in the elite class anyway. Not too much in the offing for him. He's the only incident that we've had in quite some time, actually, Dara. So it's been quite a clear session. Horvath, Sanity and Owens have had an incident as well in amongst all of that. But generally speaking, it's gone quite well. And Jimmy Vyman fancying a move on Paul Cowlishaw. Fingers crossed it doesn't go any worse for Cowlishaw, because he hasn't had the best time over it tonight, has he?
He hasn't. He's been bullied around a bit, hasn't he?
Yeah,
in the last 5 to 10 minutes at least. Doing fireman, a little bit of contact there. Now with Paul Cowlishaw is now Bjorn Klaas making involved in his Mustang. Nearly 3 wide as they get into the corner. Paul's gone wide. Through comes one. And on the X. Oh, actually looked like Klaassen's going to get the better run, but I think one of the one of the pro drivers has got himself involved as well. I think that was David Hutchison, wasn't it? As he's now got Joshua Ness right behind him as they get close to 2 Axis Sim Sport drivers. It's all very tight down here and end up with very big points in terms of the elite class. Big points on the table in the pro class. They're not going to leave each other alone in the final few minutes.
Kicking off now, just under 4 minutes to go. Tense battles, in fact, for both classes. Kalle Leskinen retakes that position at the front of the field. I'm not sure if we have missed it, but I'm not sure how long ago that would have happened. Of course, we saw the Ferrari take the lead going into turn 1, but the Porsche has been able to get that one back. Less than a second separating both of our leaders here. Half a second, in fact, in the elite standings, and he's getting closer and closer. Last lap times was 0.3 of a second quicker by Winczewski's. If he can do that again, he'll really be able to set himself in good stride coming out of this corner down toward turn 1. Then let's see how the run goes. Is that time coming down? Is that accurate? Set up slightly better in a straight line, we'll see. No, he's lost time in a straight line marginally, but he's not gaining on him in the slipstream, which is brilliant news for Luc van Goortel. Just under 3 minutes left to go here. He can potentially hang out and hold on to what will be Luc's best finish of the season. Hasn't got himself into the top 12 in the championship, so to bring home maximum points will be about as good as he could have hoped for coming into the session tonight. And good news for Winczewski's, no pressure in behind, less so for Mr. Raz Harper, who's got 3 drivers within a second of him trying to take that podium place off him.
Yeah, Mads Harper doing everything he can just to cling on to the position that he has really shown great ability in holding on to in this race, because he was under pressure at the start, nearly in the wall before turn 1, but it's done such a good job to defend to the point that he is now in with a great shout of keeping himself right at the front of the field and maybe even picking up a podium. The difficulty is, if there's 3 drivers that you don't want directly behind you, they are likely to be Luc Lucchesi, Serge Plug, and Tristan de Nobrega, and that's really what he's dealing with now. He'll have 1 lap to go to get himself to the end here, but they've got another go at turn 1. Oh, as de Nobrega goes very deep down into turn 12, I thought he was going to hit the back of Plug there. Got away with it in the end, but there is going to be 1 more lap to go. Can any of them get through on Rance Harper, or can Harper hold on? I think I'd be surprised if Harper can hold on, because Lucchesi is going to be desperate to get the move done, and Plug will as well. It would be an absolute monumental feat if he can.
Yeah, I think Tristan doing the right thing, trying to put the car ahead under that little bit of pressure, but he has upset his run a little bit coming through turn 12 there. The gap did extend a little bit, so maybe he just wants to pick his moments a little bit better, but we've seen de Nobrega late on the brakes, putting pressure on the car ahead, something that he likes to do, and more times than not, it will pay off for him. And let's see, will it be Harper and Plug who keep a hold of these positions, or will both of the RDSA cars be able to get through? Of course, Justin bringing up the rear at the moment. Cowlishaw, sadly for him, in the pit lane, it looks like could be his race over, potentially a drive-through, the amount of incident points that he may have picked up tonight, so he will lose a handful of additional positions. Bruno Silva also in the pit lane. I wonder if that's potentially fuel related, if 2 of them have gone in at the same time. We'll keep our eyes on that. Luc van Goortel doing well, doing what he needs to do. This will be the final lap, I think, Dara, if the opening race is anything to go by.
Yeah, it will.
So let's see. Oh my god, a wobble there, and a wobble by Winczewski's, both of them following through the high speed section, up and over the hill through turn 8 and 9. If Winczewski had got that one right, he could have really put Luc under some pressure coming into these braking zones, but thankfully that nervy moment there by the race leader might be all right. Luc Lucchesi and Raz Harper going side by side. Lucchesi's got the inside here. This could be critical, as Tjek Plug might fancy his opportunity. De Nobrega thinks about it as well. Great last stand here between all of our drivers, battling for all the places on the podium. Lucchesi looks like he's got it done. Is Tjek Plug going to be able to come through on the back of this one? Awfully close between these 5 drivers, basically pushing him through the chicane. There is the Vulcan Motorsports driver. Luc van Goortel is going to hang on to the race victory, I believe, as they come across the line. Surely we don't have another lap to go. Is that going to be it, Lucchese? What a race
Yeah.
it's been for he and Vinciszewski's, as Van Gortel wins the race ahead of Vinciszewski's. Luke Lucchese up 10 spaces from, of course, P14 or P13 at the start of the race. Cracking effort by these 5 drivers, I'm sure, in the sim cockpits there, Dara. They'll be absolutely buzzing with themselves because that was frantic in the final sector there.
Yeah, and Raz Harper, I think, will be delighted to hold on to P4. Such a difficult task to be given to defend from that group of drivers, but really well done from him. Vinciszewski's, of course, getting to second. Lucchese, surely going to be happy with third. But for Van Gortel as well, to hold on in the way that he did really is impressive. And, you know, he took the opportunity when it came to him, and he's given himself a hell of a lot of points. Clay Leskinen there in the cover trap, having a few donuts after his win. He's delighted. Didn't have the easiest opening race. I guess he still came second, a long way off the back of the overall winner in the pro class. But it didn't really matter. He still picked up the points for P2. It was a mouthful, and then got the win for race 2. So all in all, pretty good race for the number 1 driver.
Yeah, all of the field now coming through. Matsimo lacking a Mercedes front end there. He comes around the final corner. Lawrence van der Water making his way through the final corner. This is for the top 20 point scorers. They'll still be pleased to see in that pro division. Sadly though, for Yun Gonzalez, I don't think you've seen this livery yet, Dara, the Subaru on the Porsche. Don't quite know how I feel about it. Sadly for him, he won't be scoring any points. He's finishing the race. Rarely do we see, well, maybe not these days actually, but rarely in the past have we seen drivers finishing the race but being outside of a point scoring position. That's the downside of having 50 drivers in the field and only 40 positions up for offers as the Subaru crosses the line to round out our race finishes.
And I mean, if he was that far down, there's a good chance that he was almost rallying around some parts of the lap. So I mean, it could work out in that aspect. But
Plenty of gravel.
I don't know, that it feels a bit, yeah, exactly. It feels a bit sacrosanct, is that the word? Or sacrilegious? There we go. To have the Subaru on a Porsche,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know.
I mean, I do like it. It looks nice, but the sort of
Yeah.
crossover. For example,
Morally, yeah.
yesterday I arrived home from work and I pulled onto the drive and I saw someone who's debadged a Tesla and then
Ooh.
stuck an Audi badge on it. She's not fooling anybody. Like, she's absolutely not fooling anybody. But I just thought that was...
I respect that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, but it just didn't look right at all. So, hey, maybe that's the same thing. Subaru looks great, just maybe not on a Porsche. Anyway, back to the task at hand. We'll run you through the race results from that feature race, as always, starting with the Elite Division. So, a great race by Luke van Gortel in the end, making up 4 places from the start, of course. Matt Hoyland in the initial phase, staying at the front. Sadly for him, he had a sim crash. His PC crashed at the end there, and that's him all the way down at the bottom of the sheet, actually, sadly for Matt. 9 laps down in the end. But big congratulations to Luke van Gortel, his first race victory, his first podium of the season for the 128 Dutchman. Ignas Vinciszewski's one of the better drives in the field, along with Luke Lucchese. Those two made their way through the pack with great intention. A few hairy moments for Vinciszewski's toward the start of the race when we could see that he was ready to go for this one. In the end, though, he's made that one pull off. Another great points haul for the Vulcan Motorsports Gold team. The South Africans did pretty well. Lucchese getting onto the podium. Raz Harper next ahead of Tjek Plug. And then it was Tristan Dobriga and Justin Iloff inside the top 7. Quinton Verdonk a little bit further down the road ahead of Kevin Daniels and Jean Breitenbach for Barbecue Bread racing. It'll be Thomas Pugh, Jimmy Vyman, Bjorn Claessens and Sam Derbyshire finishing ahead of Dominic Horvath-Sanity inside the top 15 with Joran Brandenburg. William Humphrey down there couldn't recover from that initial spin, of course. Did well in the opening race. Had an issue with contact in turn 6. Wasn't able to recover up into the top 7, any better, should I say, than the top 17. Ahead of Jakob Krafek and Luke King. Luke King, of course, started at the front row. At least it seemed that way. And then he ended up coming out of the pit lane. He wasn't able to improve on that one either, even though at the start of the session, Darren, we were saying that he's RDSA's most favourable option coming into the second race. But sadly, it wasn't meant to be. Then it's 3 of our British drivers, Miles Owens, Paul Cowlishaw and Matt Hoyland. And I believe that is everybody in the elite class. Yes, it is. Great news for most of those drivers. And sadly, everybody but Paul will score points, which is just, sadly for Paul, it summarises that session, I think, for him.
Yeah, it does. I mean, he was pushed around a bit towards the end of the race, and I think he'll be somewhat gutted to finish where he did, but he really showed some good pace, and he can hold his head up high. Over in the pro class, Kalle Leskinen, again winning the race, the Finnish driver, finishing in first. He kind of works with his flag and his number, doesn't it? And he'll be very pleased in his Porsche. It wasn't quite to be for Biagio Contrale, Biagio, I should say, as the 93 driver was just off the back. He was leading for a while, but wasn't able to bring it home in the end. David Hutchison rounded out the podium for the X-Axis Sim Sports team. His teammate Joshua Ness was just behind in P4, ahead of a couple of the Y-Axis Sim Sports. You can almost like a graph with those four drivers. Chris Jennings and Joshua Cohen in the top 6. And you've got Victor Van Zeist and Austin Eper, who were 7th and 8th. First, the Americans for the LS Racing team, finishing in the top 8. Robin Elbran and Evan Nain inside the top 10 on that BMW. The only one getting a top 10 result tonight. Danny Phillips, Wayne Basson, and Steve Cobman, a trio of Brits, were inside the top 13, with Lorenzo Corgetto improved from where he was in race 1, still down in P14. Lawrence Sadapa, P15, will get a couple of points for that. Jordan Ellis, Bruno Silva, Massimo were within a minute of the race winner, with Lawrence van der Voort and Marcel Breitenbach inside the top 20. Jung Gonzalez, the last driver, on the lead lap, with Davy Daniels, race 1 winner, a lap down in the end, all the way down in P22, and I think we've got a couple more drivers in the pro class. Don't worry.
A little bit distracted there.
Okay. Here they are. It's Jeffrey Darman, who was a lap down, and then the drivers that didn't quite finish the race. Jules Philippart's not a great even for him, down in 24th. Alex Fretwell, also 9 laps down, with Malcolm Coates and Marcel Henschel all the way down, 15 laps down. Not a good evening in the end for him, but a few drivers who are going to be pretty pleased, I think, with how that's gone tonight, Joe.
Yeah, mostly so. We'll speak to a few of them now. I was just preparing for the interviews, of course, and we'll bring a few of those drivers in. Thankfully, we have the race winner in the Pro Division of Kalle Leskinen waiting for us, and then we have the 2 RDSA drivers of Tristan Drobriga and Luke Lucchese. So I think, Dara, it probably makes sense Tristan, but I believe the pole man, and of course the race victor in that opening session. So we'll go ahead and bring him in, and we'll get started with our interviews as always.
Yeah, I think it would be good. Did you say we were planning to get into Norberger first? Sorry, I was just looking at the.
Yeah, please. That'll be all good.
Yeah, I got mystified by your voice there. But here he is, Tristan Norberger. He joins us now. Tristan, welcome in. Can you hear us first of all?
Yeah, I can hear you guys.
Well, welcome in, Tristan. Good session. I'm sure that second race, as you rightly said in the chat, was a little bit stressful, but talk us through qualifying. You got away nicely. You got away well. Led the race in the opening section, of course, and then summarise that second race, because it seemed toward the end, particularly in that final couple of laps, it got a little bit dicey between you guys in the top 5. Luke managed to get himself on the podium, but pretty good result for the entire team, I think it's safe to say tonight.
Yeah, I think overall great evening for all of us. Let's start with qualifying. Obviously got pole position. Was super happy with that. Wasn't expecting it. I think the times at the front are really close. So again, just well done to all the guys. I think we're all just pushing each other to the absolute limit, and it's great to see. So yeah, happy to obviously have secured pole and had 2 of my teammates quite close by. So yeah, I'd managed to get a good start and then kind of control the pace, which was nice. And then I think we got a 1, 2, and 3 in race 1, so we locked out the podium for RDSA, which was absolutely awesome to see. So yeah, well done to my teammates. And then race 2, the reverse grid is always feisty. It got seriously close at some points. Just happy to walk away with a clean finish. And I mean, with Todd there on the end, I mean, we almost got him on the line, so that was cool. Nice little drag race down to the line. But yeah, I'll take a P6, I think it was.
Yep.
Well done to Luke, obviously, for the podium. Obviously, good points for the team. And yeah, it was good fun. I mean, these GT3s, it's really tough to try and make moves happen. So yeah, guys obviously try and maximize the start, and there were a few pushes and bumps on the start, but I think overall pretty clean. And yeah, I think it was a good night of racing.
And for you, Tristan, I mean, to have your teammates there as well, how much does it add to not just your race, but to Luke's and to the others as well, to have all of you involved right at the front of the field and almost being able to work as a trio, as a quadruple at times? How much does that benefit individually your races? Because it looks like you're working so well as a unit.
Yeah, so we try to obviously work together. We all sit in Discord together, obviously, as teammates. And yeah, the idea is always try and play fair with each other, and then when we can maximize and help each other out, we do try that. But yeah, I mean, and there's other teams up there as well. I mean, Sard, Ignas, and I think it's Quinton, our teammate. So they another triplet up there in front. So it makes it interesting. There's obviously a lot of team dynamics, and you can see some teammates let each other pass quite easy to help each other. So I think Ignas got led through quite quickly and got a strong P2 there in the reverse grid. So that's great to see, because obviously I think he finished a bit lower down in the first race after an incident. So yeah, there's always team dynamics. Everyone's out there to try and obviously maximize points. So that's what we're here to do. And yeah, like I said, it's always good to have Luke and Justin in my corner. Obviously, Luke King had a bit of a tough one in race 2. He actually disconnected just before the start of the race, and unfortunately couldn't load in time. So he had to start from the pit lane. He would have started, I think, P2 on the reverse grid. So that would have really been nice for him. But yeah, unlucky with the disconnect.
Yeah, well, it's all going well so far, Tristan. Of course, yourself and Luke leading the championship standings. Luke just ahead of you slightly, and it'll be, I think, more of the same coming into next week. But good news for the team, you're just ahead of the RLH guys, of course. And the benefit being, it was kind of a conversation we were having at the start of the broadcast, was you guys, 4 of you, is a benefit. All in the elite class, you're sort of taking the same points away from each other, whereas a lot of these other teams, could be one driver in each class potentially, could all maximize those points. But is that something you're ever going to consider, when it comes to the latter end of the championship, if you need to sort of coordinate some positions? Or I think, the professionalism of that team, more or less, you're always going to be fighting toward the front, and maybe you don't want to complicate it too much. It's going well so far, so why change it?
Yeah, well, exactly like you've said, we are stealing points from each other, so it's not ideal. So for us to win the team championship is a real challenge. It's exactly why we lost out last season. We finished a strong second, but we just couldn't compete with the team who were leading, because they had a driver in the pro class who was just picking up race wins, and then obviously you had a driver in the elite class doing very well. So it's tough. And there's many teams that do that, up to 4 drivers that have maybe drivers in different splits completely. So it does work in their favor, because they can obviously rack up more points faster than we can. Yeah, obviously we're fighting each other all for the same points. So yeah, it's tough, but we keep pushing, and we'll see where we land up end of the season. Obviously Luke and I are driving for the Drivers' Championship as well. He's obviously leading at the moment. I'm in P2. As the results stand from tonight, with my win and then a P6 and his 2 P3s, we actually net each other out, so there's 0 point gain or loss between us.
Wow.
So I would love to have gained a little bit, but yeah, it's just the way it works sometimes. So just got to take the points and move on.
Yeah, well, plenty of opportunities for that, mate. So good stuff. Awesome to speak to you, as always. A brief shout out for anyone if you'd like, and then we'll speak to a couple of other drivers.
Yeah, just again, thanks for my teammates, everyone who supports our team. Really appreciate it, everyone here from South Africa. And yeah, you guys, always the streams are amazing, so thank you for the coverage. And yeah, we really appreciate all that you guys do. So I hope you have a good week and Easter weekend. To everyone who's listening, hope it's a good weekend for you guys. And yeah, we'll check you guys at the next race.
Good stuff, Tristan. Thanks as always, mate. Speak to you soon.
Cheers.
Did not forget that. Always great to speak to him, and always nice to get a word about him and the team. Next up, I think we can have a quick word with Luke Lucchese, his teammate, who can jump in with us now. And Luke is in the booth. Can you hear us, Luke?
Yeah.
Hi, Luke. Well, we've just had quite an in-depth conversation there with Tristan about all things RDSA, so I think we'll come to you and just talk about that second race, because it seemed like you and Ignis were exchanging, toward the start. We knew that you two were going to be the ones to watch, making your way through the order, and then those sort of final 5 or 6 laps was when it really started to kick into gear. In the end, you got yourself a great position from, what was it, 13th, I think, to 3rd, so
Yeah.
a cracking session for you there, and another brilliant points haul for the team.
Yeah, look, I'm very happy with the result. I think as far as reverse grids go, I can't really complain. It was nice and clean. There were some moves that I could make, early on. But then obviously as you get to the front of the pack, then the concertina effects happen, and then you've got the guy behind me. Sard was behind me, and I managed to sort of keep the gap at about a second, and then when we get to the traffic in front, then the gap would close right down. And with Raz, I noticed that he was braking very early for one of the corners, and that was my opportunity. So I knew if I could just get next to him, then I could outbrake him. So it was risk. I could have just stayed with the P4, but yeah, no risk, no reward, eh?
And in the end for you, Luke, it's still a decent points haul. I mean, just talk us through how difficult it is, particularly in that second race, when you're working in a group of cars, which, you know, a majority of them in front of you were slower than you. At a track like this, what makes Mugello so difficult to work through a group like that?
Look, a lot of the corners you can't really overtake on, so you have to rely on either the straight or a mistake. And the problem is, everyone gets the last corner right. So if you get the last corner right, these GT3s don't have much of a toe. And even if you do get a toe, it's right at the end. So you have to be really late on the brakes or really brave around the outside where there's less grip. So it's a gamble. So either you take the safer approach and just, pick your positions where you can, or, do a do or die move and then risk, getting a DNF or getting taken out or something like that. So, and I think with these championships, it's shown that, consistency is key to trying to win the championship.
Absolutely right then. So 3 rounds completed already, Luke. Back into an hour session next week. You might be looking forward to that one, given you had a good result at the Wet Portimao last week. So Road America up next in wet conditions, of course. I think it'll be the inverse of that. I'm not quite sure actually, but I would imagine it'll be potentially dry to wet.
Dry to wet.
Yeah. So how are you looking forward to that one? Obviously, you've had a great result, so you must be optimistic.
Yeah, look, I mean, I got very lucky there, but I'll take it. Look, Road America is one of my favorite tracks, so I'm looking forward to it. I've always done well there, so yeah, I think as long as I've got a good setup, then yeah, it should be alright. I mean, it's yet to be seen what the Acura is like there. The Acura was very good here. Not really in sort of one lap pace, but in consistency. The Porsche started roasting its tires midway through the race, and you really have to dial it back just to keep the tires in check. Otherwise, you start losing the rear end through the fast sweeps. So that was also a consideration, trying to keep the tires in check and manage the race without losing control of the car and throwing the position away.
Absolutely right, Luke. Well, good stuff in the preparation. I'm sure the team will continue to do all that they do. So I'll give you an opportunity to make a shout out as always, and then we'll go and speak to our leading pro driver.
Yeah, just a shout out to my teammates, Justin, Tristan, and Luke. Very good team result for us tonight, so I'm really happy about that. And all the people that watch and support us, all our sponsors, and then just a special shout out to my parents who don't miss a stream. They're actually on a plane to the States now, so I'm sure my dad will watch when he lands.
Good stuff, mate. As always nice to speak to you all. And enjoy the Easter weekend, and we'll catch you next week.
Yeah. And then thanks to you guys, obviously, and as well.
Thank you.
All right.
Good stuff, Luke. Enjoy your weekend, man. See you soon.
You too. Bye.
Brilliant to get a word from Luke Lucchese there again. It just gives us time to get one more driver in to the booth, and it will be Kalle Leskinen, race winner in race 2 in that pro class. Kalle joins us now. Welcome in. Can you hear us?
Yes. Hello.
Welcome back to the booth then, mate. So it was not the best start, I don't think, in race 1, if memory serves me correctly, but you did have a brilliant battle with the Contrale, the Ferrari, in that second session. So talk us through that. In the end, you got the better of him. It looked like for a moment he might have just had you. We saw the move going into turn 1 when he took the lead of the race, but you were able to get it right back from him.
Yeah, so in race 1 my shifter broke on my wheel, and it was continuously sending some command. So my game had extreme lag. I had like 50 FPS, and I'm in VR, so just imagine that.
Motion sickness.
Yeah, I was just considering just pitting it because it was so bad. But yeah, I got it to the end, and I'm really happy for that. And in race 2, Contrale, Contrale was it?
Yeah.
We had a really good fight. He was really left space and was really clean driving just.
And for you, oh, sorry, Kalle.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to ask you about where your confidences lie going into the next few rounds, because you've had such a good start to the season, really good results, and another win tonight. Points tally really is racking up. How confident are you going to the next few rounds as we go to Road America in 7 days' time?
Pretty confident, because now I kind of bit more relaxed. In this race I let the elites go by more because I knew I had it wasn't so much that I need to get pole every race or I fall back in the standings. So it's nice to have some buffer so I can keep it on the track and get to the finish line. Because that's how you win.
Absolutely right, and it seems like it's going in your favour at the moment, of course, leading the championship, and that kind of backs up the decision to go with the number 1 machine as well, so fingers crossed you can convert that championship with such a race number. Was that your expectation coming into this? Were you confident that you might be one of the quickest drivers on the grid, or has that come by a little bit of a surprise?
It's a bit of a surprise, really, because in normal sessions I like P15 or something in the normal GT sprint races.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, maybe it's the just knowing I have one race that I have to perform in, so I can practice the whole week, and with 1 week's practice it's much easier.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Well, always a pleasure to speak to you. And if you'd like to give anybody a shout out before we let you go, then you can go ahead and do that now. And we'll close things out.
A shout out to my mom. Hi. And nothing else. Thank you.
Lovely. That is lovely. Good stuff, mate. Well, we'll catch you in a couple of weeks. And good luck with your preparation. And enjoy the Easter break.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Good stuff, man. Bye-bye.
And they're always great to speak to him. Good night for him to go racing as well. And that rounds up quite a good evening's worth of racing, Joe.
Yeah, good night, Mrs. Leskinen, as well, while we're here. Why not? Always good when the parents get a shout-out. Lucchese give us one, then Calais give us one. That's what you like to hear. Support in the chat, as always. So, yeah, cracking. I think that was a great session. I'm really glad that we managed to fix the stuttering. Never again will I use that alternative approach that I went for this time. So we'll stick to what we know, and we'll stick to what worked, I think it's safe to say, Dara. So, yeah, quick summary on that race. It seemed like race 1, people were getting to grips. Race 2, it was pretty hectic, and as we spoke to those drivers there at the end there, those last 5 laps really sort of, well, set the drivers apart, didn't they? People were willing to risk it. As Luke said, no risk, no reward. And in the end, he risked it all, and he got a hell of a good result.
Yeah, and I think for those drivers that picked up the points, they're going to be delighted. And to put themselves into early championship contention means, kind of as Calais said there, he can have a little bit more calmness and composure going into a race, knowing that he's got that points advantage behind him, knowing that he doesn't need to, chase after some massive results to catch up. So they're going to be absolutely delighted. And at Road America, it's not really somewhere where you want to be chasing big results, because with long straights, it means that there are reduced overtaking opportunities as you do less laps than you would otherwise do. So, yeah, looking forward to it 7 days' time, but yeah, these championships are getting closer, it feels.
Absolutely right then. So, as we close out for this evening, let's take a look, as always, at the closing information. So, you can find Dara and Mr. Bostock back in the commentary booth this Sunday evening. I think the session will probably get underway about 7:30, race start 8 o'clock. Catch them for the European GT Championship, of course. More GT3 action. This time it is around the Red Bull Ring from memory, and then we'll head to Zandvoort next, which will be a favourite, of course, for our Dutch drivers, of which we have quite a few, I believe. And I don't think, from memory, that ESR has ever raced in Zandvoort before, so that'll be a very good one to look forward to. You can catch up with the Danny Lee Porsche Cup action from round 1. That was on the Apex Racing TV YouTube channel, hosted Sunday gone, and that was an exciting race and an exciting start to their championship, featuring quite a lot of new drivers on an ESR grid for the very first time. So go ahead and check out the Danny Lee Porsche Cup. That's on alternate Sundays to the European GT events. Of course, the Practice League, open to all, free to join twice a week, Saturday afternoons and Tuesday evenings. We'll circle between the 3 formal championship circuits. We'll pick one on that week, and the calendar is available in the ESR Discord server. As always, scan the QR code, use the link on the screen now, and check out the Motorsports UK Recommended Community Guidelines, a partnership that we are proud to have, of course. And as always, a big thanks to our championship sponsors, Kame, GP2, Virtual Racing School, and Trophy AI for their support of this championship. That'll be all from us. We look forward to being back on track with you for Split A, round 4 already. Road America, it'll be dry to wet conditions for that 1 hour race. We'll see you all then, and enjoy the long weekend off.